Chapter 2375. Are you serious? Fine. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ever since she became the Fish Dragon Realm Dao Lord, Xiaoya had never fought before. As the two girls talked, they finally started fighting. With a loud crash, Qin Xian'er's room was cut in half by the shockwaves of their battle. The roof beams were sent flying hundreds of feet into the air, and the nearby houses suffered from the unexpected disaster, causing a lot of damage. Next to Qin Xian'er was senior sister Yuan's room. She was bathing inside, washing off the feces on her body. Caught off guard, her room was flipped over, revealing her naked body. For a moment, the scenery was endless. Ah! Senior sister Yuan screamed and hurriedly condensed clothes on her body. She glared at Qin Xian'er's room. Qin Xian'er! Clang, clang, clang. Only when intense fighting sounds came from inside did senior sister Yuan realize something was wrong. She shouted anxiously, "Enemy attack!" She took out her Dao artifact and rushed in. Xiaoya, who was fighting with Qin Xian'er, became more and more surprised. In terms of cultivation, Qin Xian'er was only at the Forgetting Words realm. However, the other party's battle experience shocked her. Every move of the other party seemed to be trained for the sake of killing. They might not be that powerful, but every single one of them was lethal. She could not do anything to the other party for a while. Sensing senior sister Yuan's arrival, Xiaoya could only retreat. She shouted, "I'll deal with you next time." After saying that, she took out the invisibility talisman and stuck it on her forehead. She disappeared without a trace. Qin Xian'er pierced the air with her spear and shouted, "Come out! Come out and fight!" Senior sister Yuan rushed over and looked around. After confirming that the enemy's aura had disappeared, she felt extremely strange. She was surprised that this person could sneak into the villa. She looked at the furious Qin Xian'er, who was like a little bomb, with surprise. She felt extremely strange. In her memory, Qin Xian'er had always been cold and frighteningly calm. She was rarely angry, but now she was so angry. Did the enemy do something to her? Was there need to be so angry? Junior sister Qin, are you okay? Senior sister Yuan asked. Qin Xian'er looked around and gritted her teeth. I'm fine. That tone, no matter how I looked at it, did it seem like there was something wrong? Senior martial sister Yuan said, the enemy has already left. Let's check the villa's formation first to see if there are any flaws. Qin Xian'er was extremely unwilling to give up and shouted at the air, "Don't let me see you again." TSK. Vaguely, Xiaoya's disdainful voice could be heard. Qin Xian'er, who had just calmed down, immediately glared at the surroundings. "Smelly vixen, come out. Don't hide if you dare. Hee hee. Why don't you find me if you can?" Xiaoya didn't care at all. Qin Xian'er went crazy. "Fine. I will look for Suyu now and ask him to chase you away." She was so angry that she had almost forgotten that she was angry at Suyu. "You? Of course, I'm his wife," Qin Xian'er said proudly. Xiaoya couldn't laugh anymore and said coldly, "How dare you? Then let's give it a try." Qin Xian'er smiled, revealing a row of white and fine teeth. As the two girls bickered, senior martial sister Yuan was dumbfounded. What was up with the fox spirit? Whose wife was Qin Xian'er? Just as the three girls were engrossed in the discussion, suddenly, an unexpected violent cracking sound reverberated outside the formation. In the sky above the entire civilization, the deafening roars of dozens of giant dragons rang out at the same time. The clouds in the sky shook, and endless dragon breaths turned into giant fireballs, descending from the sky into the forest. Wherever the fireballs landed, there was a sea of fire. Cities and vast forests were destroyed by the fireballs. As the main city of the shore civilization, it suffered more than half of the giant dragon breaths. Senior martial sister Yuan's expression changed abruptly. "Oh no, the Dragon Clan is here for revenge." Qin Xian'er's expression was also grave, and she couldn't care less about bickering. A few days ago, the lonely emperor of the Southern Domain Dragon Clan appeared in the shore civilization and started a massacre. The strong men of the shore civilization attacked and drove him away. It was said that the lonely emperor was not satisfied. Before he left, he said that the Dragon Clan couldn't be humiliated and that he would take revenge on the person who took away the Dragon Emperor's blood. Now it seemed that the lonely emperor had kept his word. In just a few days, he gathered dozens of giant dragons of the celestial realm and above to take revenge on the shore civilization. As they were talking, suddenly 3 giant dragon breaths smashed onto the South Sea civilization's restriction. 2 of the giant dragon breaths were easily blocked by the restriction. However, the 3rd giant dragon breath was extremely powerful for some reason, and it directly smashed through the restriction. The fireball passed through the restriction and smashed into the mountain villa, instantly causing a sea of fire. Under the terrifying dragon breath, all the houses were burned. The living beings below the Tao Master level immediately screamed in pain as they were burned and melted. Even Qin Xiener and the others felt extremely uncomfortable, and they had to use the power of the Tao Master to resist the high temperature. At this moment, an angry snort came from under the mountain villa. The Dragon Clan is too much. Boom! The ground shook violently, and a 100-foot crack appeared. A short old man with a white beard flew out from it and rushed into the giant dragons in the sky. The South Pole Immortal Hermit is also here. That's good. I have long wanted to meet you. One of the giant dragons with an especially thick body let out an extremely deep dragon roar. The South Pole Immortal Hermit's expression suddenly turned serious. Long Taiji, I didn't expect you to be nearby. He glanced at the black dragon among the giant dragons and understood that these dragons were protecting the lonely emperor. As the number 1 heaven ruler of the current generation of the Dragon Clan and the future heir of the Dragon Emperor, the lonely emperor would certainly not lack the protection of powerful beings. The South Pole Immortal Hermit had no choice but to fight the Dragon Clan when the Dragon Clan invaded. He immediately fought with Long Taiji, one of the 3 supreme Tao Masters of the Dragon Clan. The other places that had been destroyed by the Dragon Breath were too busy trying to save themselves to fight the Dragon Clan. As a result, the Dragon Clan swooped down to capture the martial artists of the shore civilization. The targets they chose were very specific, either young women or young men. This was because the charming woman and Su Yu who had escaped from the lonely emperor were both young people. Therefore, the 200 drops of dragon blood must be among these young people. Roar! Suddenly, a giant dragon of the celestial realm swooped down towards the South Sea civilization. Obviously, the young men and women in the mountain villa had attracted their attention. Insolence! The South Pole Immortal Hermit was unable to free himself and had no time to rescue them. However, from within the crack, a young man with a blade shrouded in 5 colored rays of light dashed out. He had a head of long blood-red hair, jet-black lips, and a resolute face, giving off a wild feeling. Tyrant blade style, the wild young man slashed through the air. A 10,000-foot-long blade energy sliced through space and time, striking the giant dragon of the celestial realm. With a dull thud, the giant dragon's back was slashed open, revealing a wound so deep that the bone could be seen. The giant dragon let out a painful roar, then became angry. Ant, fortunately, I have a middle-stage Tao Master of the celestial realm. Otherwise, I would have fallen into your trap. Pow! The giant dragon's long tail swept fiercely like a mountain range, sweeping the entire mountain villa away. Everyone in the mountain villa, including the wild young man, was swept into mid-air in an instant. Roar! The giant dragon opened its mouth and sucked everyone in mid-air into its mouth. Everyone was horrified and tried to escape with all their might. However, the suction of the dragon's mouth was truly terrifying. No matter how hard they tried, they were unable to escape. Only the wild young man bit the tip of his tongue, spitting out a large amount of blood onto the curved blade in his hand. The curved blade turned blood red as it escaped with the young man. The rest of the people were swallowed by it. Even Qin Xiener was not spared. After capturing them, the giant dragon flew into the sky, returning to the group of dragons. The rest of the giant dragons also caught enough people and gathered together. At this moment, the old man of the South Pole was panting, his whole body covered in injuries. As for Long Taiji, Apart from losing some of his scales, he was not seriously injured. Haha, the number one person in the West regions is only SOSO. Long Taiji laughed in disdain. Let's go. It led the dragons and swaggered away, leaving behind a devastated civilization. At the same time, the inn that Suyu was in was not spared either. It was razed to the ground by the dragon clan. However, the divine flame demonic woman was holding the fort in the inn, so it was not damaged in the slightest. The giant dragon that had come to capture Suyu was also chased away by the divine flame demonic woman. Mr. Su, are you all right? The divine flame demonic woman found Suyu's seclusion room and asked with concern. Suyu was quietly sitting at his original position. Even though his cultivation room had been destroyed, it did not seem to affect him in the slightest. He shook off the dust on his body, lightly shaking his head. I'm fine. Even without the divine flame demonic woman, the giant dragon could not do anything to Suyu. At his current level, his heavenly dragon body was no weaker than an early-stage celestial realm pathmaster. The divine flame demonic woman heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at the remnant shadows of the departing dragons and said worriedly, "Just as I expected, the dragon clan will not let this matter rest. I wonder who took away the 200 drops of the dragon emperor's dragon blood and provoked the dragons to invade." Suyu was filled with disdain. The lonely emperor had made it clear that he had used 200 drops of the dragon emperor's blood to exchange for the body of the young dragon. How honorable had he been? But when he had really lost the dragon emperor's blood, he had flown into a rage and destroyed the North Shore civilization to search for the 200 drops of the dragon emperor's blood. Suyu's impression of the lonely emperor could not be any worse. He looked righteous on the surface, but he was not. However, this had nothing to do with him. In the underground market, he had not exposed any information about himself. No matter who the dragon clan captured, they would not be able to betray Suyu. At that moment, Xiaoya ran back in a panic. It turned out that she had the talisman with her and had managed to escape through the seal in time. She had seen Qin Xianer being captured with her own eyes and knew that something was wrong. She had rushed back immediately. "Oh no, Suyu," Xiaoya said hurriedly. "Qin Xianer has been captured by the dragon clan." "What?" Suyu stood up abruptly, his face filled with anger. What do those useless people from the South Ocean civilization think? Even a few dragons can't stop them. He had thought that no matter which faction's young talents were captured, they would not be able to capture the South Ocean civilization. After all, there was the number one expert of the West regions, the South Pole Immortal Wang, holding the fort, who knew that they would be so vulnerable. Suyu felt extremely anxious. The longer Qin Xianer was in the hands of the dragon clan, the more danger she would be in. He had witnessed the brutality of the dragon clan. They had destroyed the underground market and the North Shore civilization at every turn, not caring about the lives of the other races. Now that Xianer was in their hands, how could she have a good ending? Chapter 2376. Although Xianer's memories stopped at the moment when she hated him, but he couldn't just stand by and watch. Even if she hated him to the core, she had to save him from the abyss of suffering. "Suyu, are you going to save her? Don't be foolish. It's impossible for you to save Qin Xianer by yourself." Xiaoya sensed Suyu's intentions and stopped him. The entire co-civilization had fallen into a state of devastation. The number one expert of the Western region had returned with injuries, and many experts had died. How could Suyu save Qin Xianer from them all by himself? That was a path of certain death. Suyu's gaze was calm and serene. "If it's for her, I can defy the heavens and the earth, and I won't regret it even if I die." After he finished speaking, he turned into a bolt of lightning and shot out of the clouds, chasing after the dragon clan. Xiaoya stood rooted to the ground, her mind echoing with his parting words. Great envy surged in her heart. With a husband like this, what more can I ask for? Xiaoya murmured. "Qin Xianer, oh Qin Xianer, how did you find such a husband?" The divine flame demoness wore a worried expression as she said, "Hide yourselves for now. I'll go with young Master Su." However, at that moment, Suyu's voice came from the sky. "I alone am enough. Even though the divine flame demonic woman was powerful, she was ultimately too weak to play a decisive role. If that was the case, Suyu might as well go alone. There was no need to implicate innocent people because of him. The divine flame demonic woman's footsteps faltered as she thought anxiously, if only Senior were here. Why would he allow the dragon tribe to wreak havoc here? Xiaoya's eyes turned slightly. Don't worry, evil woman. The most important thing now is to contact the leaders of the other forces and form an army to chase after the dragon race. This time, the younger generation of many forces were captured by the Dragon Clan. These young elites were the main force participating in the recruitment of the 8-star civilizations. How could they sit back and do nothing? Just now, the dragon race came too suddenly, and many of the leaders of the factions did not have time to react. If they were united and worked together, how could they be afraid of those dozens of dragons? If I'm fast enough, I might be able to catch up in time and help Suyu. The divine flame demonic woman was well aware of how powerful the dragon tribe was. If she went alone, she might not be able to make much of a difference. She could only rely on the strength of the leaders of the other forces. Fortunately, almost all the people from the western region's 9 grade 7 civilizations had arrived at the shore civilization. With their combined strength, it was almost certain that they would be able to recapture the person who had been kidnapped. The premise was that they were still alive. I'll contact them right away, the divine flame demoness said. However, someone moved faster than her. That was the South Pole Immortal One. As the #1 expert in the West regions, the South Pole Immortal Hermit had great rallying power. With the vigorous power of a Taoist master in the Great Venerable Realm, he announced to the entire shore civilization, all elites of the celestial tier and above in the civilization, come quickly. They, who had been corrupted by the dragon race, immediately found their backbone and headed to the villa where the South Ocean civilization was. The divine flame demonic woman furrowed her brows. She and the South Pole Immortal One did not have a friendly relationship. However, for Suyu's sake, he had no choice but to go. When he arrived at the villa, sure enough, the forces of the 9 major 7-star civilizations were all present. For example, the famous 10,000 insect civilization was on the list. The arrival of the divine flame demonic woman made many powerful cultivators excited. The arrival of the second strongest expert in the western region boosted their confidence. Everyone, I don't need to explain the situation. The South Pole Immortal Hermit looked at the divine flame demonic woman meaningfully and said in a low voice, "The dragon race of the southern region has the audacity to trespass into the western region and capture our outstanding disciple in front of us. This is a public declaration of war." The atmosphere suddenly became much more solemn. The dragon race's provocation could indeed be called a war. Can you tolerate it? The South Pole Immortal Hermit glanced at everyone present. Of course not. The master of civilization of the 10,000 insect civilization kicked the table and said, "The dragon race has gone too far. We didn't do anything to the lone emperor when they started the massacre. All we did was chase him away. But did the dragon race owe us anything? Instead, they became even more aggressive in destroying the shore civilization. We can be killed, but not humiliated." The lord of the shore civilization was the most furious. Ever since the dragon race rose to power, they have always been arrogant and domineering. The shore civilization originally wanted to keep the peace, but the dragon race has gone too far. I do not have any hostages in the hands of the dragon race, but I am willing to accompany you to catch up with the dragon race and teach them a lesson. We need to let them know that the western region cannot be bullied. Yes, only pain can let the dragon race know the bottom line. Everyone spoke one after another, and their will was very unified. No matter what, they had to catch up and take back their disciples. At the same time, they would teach the dragon race a deep lesson. The South Pole Immortal Hermit sighed in relief. The western region has so many righteous people. Why should we worry about the future? Everyone follow me. The South Pole Immortal Hermit stood up. At that moment, the red-haired young man standing upright beside him said, "Master, although I am not at the celestial realm, I am willing to accompany the seniors to kill the dragon race and rescue my junior brothers and sisters. Hearing that, the leaders of the various forces looked over with indescribable envy in their eyes. They might not have seen that young man before, but they had definitely heard of him. The eldest disciple of the South Pole, immortal hermit, Tai Buffon. He was a contemporary elite who had cultivated the Tao of the saber to perfection. He was also the Western region's well-deserved prodigy, the Divine Emperor. None of the prodigies of the other 8 seven-star civilizations were a match for him, so he was recommended as the #1 prodigy of the Western region. His reputation was comparable to that of the lone emperor. The South Pole immortal hermit has really taught a good disciple. The master of the million insect civilization was envious. I saw with my own eyes just now that your disciple fought a celestial realm giant dragon head-on and even wounded it. The younger generation will surpass us in time. He is indeed remarkable. This time, he will definitely have a place in the recruitment of the 8-star civilizations. Among the crowd, only the divine flame demonic woman was not impressed. In the past, he might have been the king of prodigies. But now, that might not be the case. Suyu had the power to compete with Tai Buffon, and he might even be stronger. In the manner, Suyu had been playing it down and never revealed his true strength. Therefore, his true strength should be higher than what the divine flame demonic woman had witnessed. The South Pole immortal hermit was proud of himself. He cupped his fists and said, "You are flattering me. Buffon is still young and needs more training, not praise." Tai Buffon was standing calmly, neither arrogant nor rash. This won him even more praise from the crowd. The South Pole immortal hermit looked at the time and said, "Time is of the essence. Let's set off immediately." The dragon race was best at flying. If they were delayed for too long, they might not be able to catch up. Therefore, the group of people charged into the universe. On the other side, after Suyu rushed out of the clouds, he used the ancestral dragon's strange feather at the cost of his ancestral blood. In a breath's time, he caught up with the dragon race that had left the West region. Crash! In the chaotic yin and yang and life and death, Suyu appeared. As far as his eyes could see, dozens of giant dragons were rampaging all the way, smashing all the small civilizations and meteorites along the way. Only when they stopped on a slightly larger civilization did they stop and land on a giant mountain. Dozens of dragons coiled and opened their mouths, spitting out all the people they had captured. Qin Xian'er, senior sister Yuan, and the others were among them. Those who stole 200 drops of dragon blood stepped forward. The lonely emperor crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked around at the hundreds of people in front of him, his eyes full of contempt. However, no one answered, because they really didn't steal it. No one. The lonely emperor's eyes were cold. If that's the case, suddenly he stretched out his dragon claws and pulled over a werewolf martial artist who was closest to him. He pressed him to the ground and said coldly, "From now on, every 10 breaths, I will kill one person until you admit it." As he spoke, a layer of pitch-black dragon breath came out of the dragon claws, roasting the werewolf martial artist until he screamed in agony. The martial artist resisted with all his might, but he couldn't move the dragon claws at all. Bit by bit, he was burned alive by the dragon breath from the surface of his body to the inside. Finally, he was completely cooked and died. The process was extremely cruel, and it shook their hearts. Just in time, 10 breaths had passed. The lone emperor grabbed another person, and without saying a word, he used his dragon's breath to burn him to death. There was no trace of pity in his eyes, only endless coldness. Everyone shuddered and panicked. They looked at each other, hoping that someone would step forward. But no one did. The lonely emperor snorted. "Their deaths are all because of you. You can't blame me." As he spoke, he grabbed another person. Unfortunately, this time he caught Qin Xian'er. Qin Xian'er's eyes were calm, and she didn't panic. It was as if she had seen through death. In the Azura civilization, when she became the Azura king, she had killed many people. She was no longer afraid of death. However, at this moment, before she died, she couldn't help but feel a trace of regret. In her mind, she recalled the last scene when she parted ways with Suyu. She recalled Suyu's seemingly calm but lonely eyes when she left. Was I wrong? but he really betrayed me like that. Qin Xian'er's heart was still filled with indignation. The lonely emperor showed no mercy. In his dragon claws, a strong dragon breath was burning. It was about to burn Qin Xian'er alive. However, at this moment, an ethereal, majestic voice pierced through the universe and echoed throughout the chaos galaxy. Burn her, and I will destroy the entire dragon clan. The voice was unusually calm and confident, as if it was an existence in the dark, looking down at them. The lonely emperor's claws froze. He looked up at the galaxy, searching for the source of the voice. Who is it? Chi. Suddenly, in the sky above the civilization, a large number of stars rotated, forming a huge vortex. A strong wind blew out from the vortex. Amidst the howling wind, a young man with silver hair and an ice crystal crown on his head floated down slowly. He had a pair of bone-chilling eyes. Although his figure was delicate, he was like a king of darkness who had walked out of the Nine Serenities. His entire body was emitting a dangerous aura that made people shudder. The shifting stars. Is it the space realm? Long Taiji looked at the chaotic galaxy, slightly surprised. He hadn't heard of anyone in the world who had mastered the 8 great realms in a long time. The lonely emperor was stunned for a moment, but he didn't think much of it. A mere half-step Tao Lord who has mastered the space realm dares to play tricks? So what if I burn her to death? As he spoke, the dragon breath in his claws erupted. Su Yu's eyes turned cold, and the space around him distorted rapidly. Chapter 2377. In an instant, it was as if the heavens and earth were turning upside down. The huge space where Su Yu was distorted. In the next moment, the lone emperor felt the space beneath his claw tremble violently, as if it had been forcefully replaced by someone else. When she looked down, Qin Xian'er had disappeared and was replaced by Su Yu. Spatial displacement. When the dragon's breath was about to hit him, Su Yu switched places with Qin Xian'er with the space substitution technique so that he could bear the destructive dragon's breath. The lone emperor was slightly stunned. Then his eyes turned cold. Not only did he spit out dragon breath from his claws, but he also pressed his claws down fiercely. Ant, you're not worthy of mastering the space realm. Su Yu raised his head. His eyes were as cold as ice as he stared at the lonely emperor's giant dragon head. Scram! With a shake of his arms, his physique at the late stage of the fish dragon level burst out. The lonely emperor was caught off guard. He didn't expect that a mere half-step Dowlord would possess such a powerful physique. In his moment of carelessness, his dragon claw was pushed away by Su Yu's fist. He suddenly lost his balance and fell to the ground. Although the giant claw had been pushed away, the dragon's breath still landed on Su Yu's body. The terrifying dragon's breath instantly burned all of Su Yu's clothes into ashes. His skin and flesh were like leather in a blazing flame, making sizzling sounds. In the blink of an eye, he was badly mutilated, and his facial features were no longer recognizable. The dragon breath was still spreading on his body, turning him into a burning man. But he didn't make a sound. There was only a creepy silence. In the distance, Qin Xian'er, who had just understood what had happened, saw the scene of Su Yu turning into a man of flames. She stood there in a daze. All the hatred, pain, and confusion in her heart disappeared in an instant. There was only shock and emotion that came from the depths of his soul. It was accompanied by heart-wrenching pain. It was as if the raging flames were also burning Su Yu. Su Yu! Qin Xian'er blurted out in the end, then quickly flew over. Tears fell from her eyes like rain. She couldn't understand why Su Yu would betray her and die for her. Why? She couldn't understand it, and she didn't want to think about it anymore. She just wanted to extinguish the dragon breath on Su Yu's body and ask him personally. The lone emperor's cold snort sounded like thunder exploding in his ears. Qin Xian'er's delicate body fluttered in the air like a butterfly. Wisps of fresh blood drew a stunning arc as they floated in the air. It was poignant and beautiful, as if it was painting the last and most magnificent picture to the world. At the same time, a dragon claw that covered the sky slammed down, bringing with it an aura of death and sending it into the yellow springs. It was a pity that Qin Xian'er's cultivation was weak. Under the lonely emperor, she was like a speck of dust. They could only wait for death without any chance to resist. Despicable race, despicable woman. Is there no one who can save you? The lone king slammed his claw down, wanting to smash Qin Xian'er, who was flying backward. However, another wave of majestic space descended upon them. Beside Qin Xian'er, who was flying, the space distorted, and a figure covered in flames appeared. He held on to Qin Xian'er with one hand and raised his other hand to block the lone emperor's terrifying dragon claw. This claw was the lonely emperor's claw with all his might. How could Su Yu, who was only in his human form, resist it? His body was like a piece of paper as he was pressed down rapidly. Further down was the bottom of the void. Su Yu would definitely be crushed into pieces. At that moment, Su Yu extended a finger and tapped it between Qin Xian'er's eyebrows, entering her body with a space domain. Go, don't look back. Su Yu released his finger and activated the space domain. He didn't even look at Qin Xian'er. It was as if he was talking to the air, to the past, to Qin Xian'er. Perhaps this was the last time he would save Qin Xian'er. In the future, he would never be able to stay by her side. No! Qin Xian'er's heart trembled violently. On the brink of death, her mind suddenly recalled many fragments of memories that she had never had before. It was the effect of the snake gall spiritual liquid. Not only did it help her recall the four most profound memories, but at that moment, the medicinal power was activated, causing her to recall many weak fragments of memory. Although those fragments were not profound, they were all related to Su Yu. Bit by bit, like a mountain spring, like mist, like a drizzle, they nourished her blank memories. Sweetness, bitterness, longing, all kinds of emotions filled her heart. It turned out that she had loved Su Yu so much. Even after his betrayal, that heart of hers had never changed. However, the space domain had already been activated. Qin Xian'er's body distorted, and she was instantly swept away. At the moment when she was swept away, Qin Xian'er reached out to grab Su Yu. However, she only grabbed a jade bottle that was floating around him. With a loud bang, Qin Xian'er was taken away in an instant, far away from the boundless starry region. She fell on an abandoned civilization. Ignoring the injuries on her body, she crawled up in a sorry state. Su Yu. Qin Xian'er crawled up and wiped away her tears. She tried to fly back to save Su Yu. Only then did she realize that she had not grabbed nothing. Feeling the foreign object in her palm, she turned her head and saw that it was the fifth bottle of spiritual liquid that she had never drunk. She was startled, but then drank it without hesitation. She couldn't wait to know what happened to her and Su Yu in the end. Did Su Yu regret it? After a sharp and sweet taste of blood, her mind was stung, and an image appeared. In the image, Su Yu's face was pale, and blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth. He was standing in front of her with a sad smile. Beside her, a middle-aged man in a yellow robe was sneering and pitying. No, I poisoned Su Yu? Qin Xian'er covered her mouth, and her mind was filled with thunder. Moreover, Su Yu knew that it was poisonous, but he still chose to die. She had already killed Su Yu once. She had used her own hands to kill him once. He owed her once, and he had already repaid it with his life. Now, he was still using his own life to save her. A great sense of regret reverberated in her heart. She shouldn't have been so careless, so impulsive, so heartless. She would never trust him again. That sentence might be the last thing she said to Su Yu. No, Qin Xian'er's heart was filled with great regret. If she could go back in time, she would never say those words again. Regardless of her injuries, she flew away, eager to see Su Yu again. She wanted to apologize to him, say thank you, and say that she didn't hate him. However, her injuries were too severe, and she didn't even have the strength to break through the civilization, so she fell from the sky. She tried several times, but failed halfway. She had to stop to rest, and while resting, she sobbed with regret. On the other side, the moment he sent Qin Xian'er away, he was slammed into the bottom of the void by a dragon claw. The void shook the heavens, and the Milky Way of the universe was swept back. The majestic waves reverberated between the heavens and the earth, unable to subside for a long time. The Milky Way in the distance was surging, rolling toward the depths of the universe. The power of this palm had already reached the early stage of the celestial realm. No one could stop it, and nothing could stop it. All living beings under its claws had no chance of survival. The universe was silent, and only the sound of the void could be heard. The lonely emperor raised his dragon claw, shaking it lightly. He let out a long sigh. It's finally quiet. Long Taiji looked on coldly from the sidelines, laughing. Lowly humans, this is the result of offending your superiors. The lonely emperor was disdainful. You asked for it, don't blame me. Also, send a dragon to find that lowly human woman. There's no need to bring her back, just kill her. His murderous intent was evident. He wouldn't let a single one of them go. But right at that moment, from the deep, dark, and lightless bottom of the void, a blinding light appeared without warning. Not only did it illuminate the entire bottom of the void, but it even illuminated the starry sky that was as dark as ink. It was as if there was a sun rising from the bottom of the void. What's going on? The lonely emperor frowned. His huge dragon eyes looked against the blinding light, and he saw a blurry figure, shrouded in powerful lightning, slowly walking up from the bottom of the void. His steps were slow and rhythmic. It was like a heartbeat. Under his gaze, the sun finally rose. He didn't die. The lonely emperor was shocked. Not only was Suyu not dead, but the wounds on his body that had been burned by the dragon's breath had also disappeared. His left hand was upright, and his right hand was slightly raised. His fist was tightly clenched, as if he was holding on to something. His eyes were also lowered as he stared at the fist. His head was lowered, and no one could see the expression on his face. Interesting. There are very few people of the same age who can withstand my claw and not die, the lonely emperor said proudly. Fine, I'll be more serious and grant you death. As he spoke, the lonely emperor slammed his claw down again. Compared to the last time, not only did it strike with full force, but it also carried a strong dragon's breath. Bang! So you didn't even lift his head, only his left arm. The moment he lifted his arm, his body rapidly changed. From a human body, it rapidly transformed into a dark golden half-dragon body. The dark golden dragon claw easily blocked the lonely emperor's attack. At the same time, the dragon claw released a black dragon's breath. Creak! Ah! The lonely emperor suddenly screamed and hurriedly retracted his dragon claw. One could see that there were burn marks on its claws. A dragon had been burned by a human's dragon's breath? Such a strange story was rarely seen in this world. The lonely emperor staggered, staring at Suyu's current form. Half human, half dragon body? The lonely emperor was shocked and angry. He was angry that a human had dared to use dragon materials to cultivate the secret technique of half-dragon transformation. He was shocked that, as a pure dragon, his physique was slightly inferior to that of a mere half-dragon. Long Taizu's eyes shone brightly, and a trace of deep surprise lingered in the depths of his eyes. It seemed that Suyu's half-dragon body had reminded him of something. Suyu's eyes were calm, and within that calmness, there was an icy aura that made people tremble with fear. He opened his palm, and it was the blood that Qin Xin'er had spat out. 23 drops in total. Suyu lowered his head, and his tone was indescribably cold. I said, don't hurt her. Since you're so stubborn, I'll repay you with a drop of blood, a dragon. He raised his head, and a pair of golden eyes shot out waves of murderous light that tore through the sky. Chapter 2378. With a wave of his hand, the heaven-destroying rod appeared. Seeing the rod, the lonely emperor's expression changed drastically. He immediately recognized it and said fiercely, You are the one who stole the Dragon Emperor's blood? That person who defeated him and seized the dragon blood was actually a nobody at the half-stepped Downward realm? The lonely emperor could not believe it. Suyu ignored him, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Grow! The heaven-destroying rod suddenly became 10 feet long and was lightly grasped in his hand. Fine, I'll teach you a lesson today. The lonely emperor was not resigned to his failure at the underground market. He said to Long Taiji, "Don't do anything. Let me do it myself." Long Taiji nodded in agreement. The growth of the dragon clan had always been cruel. From the moment they were born, they began to train themselves. Their way of training was not through sparring, but by finding enemies with similar abilities to fight to the death. In the midst of death, they constantly stimulated their various potentials, allowing their abilities to rise again and again. Hence, the dragon clan's population had always been small. There was only one prince in this generation of the dragon clan. There had been 4 princes in the beginning, but all of them had died in the cruel training, unable to return alive. The lonely emperor was the last and also the strongest. Long Taiji felt that the human before him was quite powerful. He should be able to become a training opportunity for the lonely emperor, a stepping stone for him to ascend again. "Don't worry and fight," Long Taiji said. The lonely emperor gripped his dragon claw and grinned. He took out a very unique weapon. It was a whip made of dragon tendons. The whip released a thick dragon aura. With just a slight hit, the dragon aura would enter the body and kill. "You were careless last time. This time, it won't be so easy for you to escape." The lonely emperor did not think that Su Yu's abilities had improved much in just a few days. Last time, Su Yu had escaped when he was no match for the lonely emperor. This time, he could not escape even if he wanted to. Bang! Su Yu did not listen to his nonsense. He raised the heaven-destroying rod and struck the lonely emperor's head. The lonely emperor's lips curled into a mocking smile. "I'll let you have a taste of the Dragon Soul Whip first." Slap! With a flick of his wrist, the Dragon Soul Whip twisted its body like a moving snake, then whipped towards Su Yu's waist at a tricky angle. Along the way, there was a terrifying dragon aura. If Su Yu's current half-dragon body was hit, he would be crippled even if he didn't die. However, Su Yu's eyes were calm and unwavering. It was as if he only had eyes for the lonely emperor. In his mind, the scene of the lone emperor heavily injuring him replayed. He owed Qin Xian enough in this life, but he didn't even have the ability to protect her face to face. Thinking of this, his heart turned even colder. Even his eyes were like 2 ice-cold abysses, shooting out a gaze that froze the air. Dying. Su Yu ignored the whip lashing at his waist, which was now a bloody mess. He ignored the dragon breath that had entered his body and burned all of his internal organs. He ignored the extreme pain. He had only one thing to do, and that was to kill the lonely emperor. Bang! The heaven-exterminating rod smashed down with a piercingly cold might. The lonely emperor's face changed slightly. He thought that Su Yu would change from offense to defense, but he didn't expect it to be a situation where both sides were injured. His heart skipped a beat, and he didn't have time to retract the Dragon Soul Whip. Instead, he punched out with a single fist. Tyrannical dragon Dao-destroying fist. All of a sudden, 10,000 dragons roared and thunder rumbled. The momentum was extremely terrifying. That day, it was this punch that destroyed the entire barrier of light and killed many innocent people. Su Yu was fearless when he used the same move that day. He smashed down with the heaven-exterminating rod. Pound! The deafening sound shook the universe and stirred up the void. All of a sudden, the Xing River was turbulent, engulfing the abandoned civilizations and meteorites in all directions. The dragon roar between the lonely emperor's fists was completely shattered by the rod. The dragon scales on his fists were smashed off, revealing the blood-red dragon flesh. The lonely emperor's fists were burning with pain, and his whole arm was numb and unresponsive. The hardness of the heaven-exterminating rod was beyond his imagination. "That's all you've got," the lonely emperor sneered. "If you don't use all your strength, you won't be able to protect the lowly human woman like you." His words were full of mockery. Su Yu's eyes were calm. "You're already clamoring before it has even started?" The lonely emperor was stunned. Hadn't started? What did that mean? Su Yu's roar suddenly sounded in his ears. Heavy. He frantically instilled the power of desolation into the heaven-exterminating rod, making its weight 100 times heavier. Even he couldn't bear such a weight. Before the lonely emperor understood what was going on, he suddenly felt an unstoppable force coming from his fists. The heaven exterminating rod had suddenly become extremely heavy. It was so heavy that he couldn't stop it even with all the dragon power he had. Crack! His arm was crushed by the heaven exterminating rod on the spot. Bang! The heaven exterminating rod smashed down on his long dragon body. The sound of bones breaking could be heard, passing through his body like musical notes. In an instant, the bones in the lonely emperor's body were smashed into several pieces. Under the incomparably heavy pressure of the heaven exterminating rod, he continued to sink into the bottom of the void. This scene caught Long Taiji and the others by surprise. Lonely Emperor! A dragon turned pale with fright, wanting to rush over to help. But Long Taiji stopped him. This is the Lonely Emperor's training. Do not interfere unless it is absolutely necessary. But the Lonely Emperor, Long Taiji said calmly. If the Lonely Emperor was defeated so easily, how could he be qualified to be the heir of the Dragon Emperor? What he has shown is just the tip of the iceberg. He turned to stare at Suyu. To think that the human race has such a genius. How rare. In any other era, he could be the leader of the human race. But unfortunately, he met the Lonely Emperor. He is ultimately just a stepping stone on the Lonely Emperor's path to greatness. On the battlefield, Suyu's eyes were cold. He held the heaven exterminating rod in his hand and continued to press down. Until he was pressed into the bottom of the void, the Lonely Emperor's eyes were filled with anger. He felt as if he had been bitten by an ant. That's enough. Berserk Dragon Transformation. The Lonely Emperor's eyes suddenly turned red. The dragon heart in his body was beating even faster. His dragon body continued to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. His dragon body, which was originally only 10,000 feet long, instantly became 10,000 feet long. What was even more strange was that the broken bones in his body were burrowing out of his body, turning into bone spikes that stuck to the surface of his body. From afar, he looked like a dragon with bone spikes all over his body. The broken bones in his body were also healing in an instant. Scram! The Lonely Emperor's giant dragon body shook violently, and he actually pulled the heaven exterminating rod away. A myriad of forces caused huge waves to form in the entire void. Long Taiji, who was watching from above, revealed a gratified expression. This is the real Lonely Emperor, the #1 genius of the southern region. Chapter 2379. On the other hand, Suyu held the heaven-destroying rod in his hand. He stood in the turbulent void like a divine needle, unaffected. What's up with that rod? Suyu was puzzled. At the bottom of the void, the lone emperor, covered in bone spikes, stared at Suyu. You forced me to use the Berserk Dragon Transformation. You lowly ant, you can die without regrets. Suyu did not say a word. He continued to imbue the heaven-destroying rod with primordial energy. Thin. The heaven-destroying rod immediately became as thin as an embroidery needle. Then, Suyu pointed the embroidery at the enormous body of the quasi-lonely emperor and said slowly, "Grow." Swoosh! The embroidery needle immediately became tens of thousands of feet long, piercing the lone emperor's huge dragon body. Moreover, it was aimed at his heart. He had the experience of searching for the ancestral dragon's heart. He was very clear about the structure of a dragon's body. Ding! With a burst of sparks, the embroidery needle was nailed to a huge dragon scale, unable to penetrate any further. The lone emperor's blood-red eyes were filled with contempt. You have yet to understand the power of the Berserk Dragon Transformation. His body shook violently. A monstrous force swept the embroidery needle away. It could not penetrate his body at all. After the Berserk Dragon Transformation, the lone emperor's dragon body was 10 times stronger. His scales could no longer be knocked off as easily as before. Accept your death, lowly human. The lone emperor swept his tail, which was covered in ferocious bone spikes. Suyu retracted the heaven-destroying rod, blocking in front of his chest. With a rumble, he was sent flying by the giant tail. The lone emperor's eyes were filled with pity. Goodbye. The bone spikes on his tail suddenly shot out, piercing towards Suyu. The bone spur was 100 feet thick, and it was powerful enough to crush Suyu to death. But Suyu's eyes were calm as he silently recited the incantation. The incantation was extremely ancient, and it was the ancient language of the dragon race. Long Taiji, who had thought that the battle was over, suddenly turned pale. He said in disbelief, This is the secret technique passed down from generation to generation in the previous dynasty." He did not finish his sentence, because Suyu had already activated it. Dragon, blood, boiling, tongue. As the words were spoken, the dragon blood in the bodies of all the dragons present seemed to have been awakened. It caused them to start burning from the inside out. As Tao lords of the celestial realm, they were able to immediately suppress this mysterious ancient flame. However, they were unable to suppress the fear they felt towards the ancient past. If they were already in such a state, the lone emperor's cultivation level was not as high as theirs, and it was even more so. Its huge dragon body suddenly burst into flames. It tried hard to extinguish the flames, but to no avail. The boundless flames burned him to the point of unbearable pain. He roared repeatedly, boiling dragon blood, one of the secret arts of the previous generation's royal family. How did you learn it? How could you? At that moment, Suyu's face was deathly pale. This technique originated from Princess Linglong. She had used it before, and Suyu had secretly learned it. However, this technique required an extremely large amount of dragon blood as the price to activate. More than half of the 200 drops of Dragon Emperor blood that had been fused into his body had been used up by this technique. Even the Dragon Monarch had to be cautious when executing this technique. However, as long as he could kill the lone emperor, it didn't matter how big the price was. Under the blazing fire, the dragon scales on the surface of the lonely emperor's body were peeled off one after another, revealing his badly mutilated dragon flesh. So you looked at it coldly. Holding the heaven-destroying rod in his hand, he once again stabbed it like an embroidery needle. Poof! The 100,000-foot-long embroidery needle finally pierced through the dragon's body and heart. Ah! The lonely emperor let out a heart-wrenching roar. He felt his life slipping away, and he finally felt the threat of death. Second transformation of the raging dragon. The lonely emperor's blood-red eyes suddenly turned pale. The flesh and blood of his 100,000-foot-long dragon body collapsed on its own, leaving behind only a complete dragon skeleton. Moreover, the skeleton grew rapidly, replacing the missing flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a skeletal dragon. Even his heart had turned into extremely hard bones. As such, his heart was saved, and he was spared from death. You're courting death. The lonely emperor was completely exposed, or rather, he felt a trace of fear. This human was way too mysterious and way too frightening. If he hadn't successfully cultivated the second transformation of the raging dragon not long ago, he would have died today. An unprecedented murderous intent reverberated in his heart. He had to die. Feeling the great threat, the lonely emperor's murderous intent rose. Soul burial of 10,000 bones. A pale white flame suddenly shot out from his 100,000-foot-long dragon body. It was a mysterious flame that was 100 times more terrifying than the dragon's breath. Even from a distance, Suyu could feel the scorching heat from his half-dragon body. If he was touched by the pale white flame, his soul would be destroyed. However, the lonely emperor had underestimated the heaven-destroying rod. This was a sword that could be mentioned in the same breath as the royal dragon sword. Thicken, he bellowed, and the heaven-destroying rod suddenly became as thick as an arm. The heaven-destroying rod, which had pierced through the lonely emperor's heart, expanded several times without any hindrance. Naturally, the bony heart was crushed into pieces. The pain from the distance made the lonely emperor even more irritable. He charged forward with a furious roar. Dying. Accompanying him was the extremely dangerous pale white flame. Suyu's expression was cold. He held the heaven-destroying rod with both hands and exerted all his strength. Rise! Rumble! A shocking scene appeared. Suyu had lifted the lonely emperor, who was 100,000 feet tall. It was like lifting a wooden fork with a snake on it. Compared to the 100,000-foot tall, lonely emperor, Suyu was as small as a speck of dust. At this moment, Suyu had lifted the lonely emperor into the air with a shocking power, and then smashed him down. Bang! The 100,000-foot-tall dragon body was smashed into the ground, causing the Star River to tremble and the void to roar. The lonely emperor's dignity as the number one heaven ruler of the southern region had been smashed to smithereens. The human race, I will destroy you, the lonely emperor roared. But before he could get up, Suyu lifted him up again and smashed him down again. Bang! The human race, Bang! The human race, bang, bang, bang. The crowd of dragons above watched as the lonely emperor was swung around on the ground by Suyu's rod. The lonely emperor no longer looked like the number one heaven ruler of the southern region. He looked like a dead dog. At first, he could still roar, but his voice grew weaker and weaker. Until now, he had fainted from the fall. They could not believe that the most powerful heaven ruler of the current generation of the dragon race had been defeated so miserably by a human. Long Taiji was shocked, his murderous intent rising. This person could not be allowed to live. When he grew up in the future, he would definitely be a figure comparable to the Dragon Emperor. Moreover, he had the shadow of the previous royal family of the dragon race. No matter what, he could not be allowed to live in this world. Human, stop, Long Taiji said arrogantly. His tone was not a request, but an order. As he spoke, he flicked a finger at Suyu. A breath and a thought of a great venerable realm pathmaster was terrifying, let alone a flick. It looked like he was trying to stop Suyu, but he was actually trying to kill him. Chapter 2380. Get lost. Suyu squinted his eyes and took out the insect ancestor's finger. At the same time, he sacrificed a drop of the insect ancestor's blood essence to crush it. All of a sudden, a boundless finger shadow that was tens of millions of zhong long suddenly appeared in the galaxy. The finger shadow was majestic, covering the sky and earth. The entire Milky Way in the universe trembled. The void was split into two by the finger shadow. The stars in the sky were thrown into chaos, and the yin and yang of the universe were turned upside down. Dozens of giant dragons were scattered by the destructive energy emitted by the finger shadow. Even Long Taiji, who was at the great venerable level, could not withstand the ancient ancestor level power. The finger shadow pierced through the galaxy and pointed directly at Long Taiji. All of a sudden, Long Taiji's dragon heart thumped wildly. His muscles tightened, like an ant in front of a monstrous flood. In the face of such a disaster, he was insignificant. His pupils shrank, and his scalp went numb. At this critical moment, he had no time to think. He grabbed a giant dragon beside him and used it as a shield. Puff! However, under the finger shadow, the so-called strong dragon was just a piece of paper. He was easily crushed into a rain of blood. Long Taiji was extremely shocked. His heart was filled with fear. What was that finger? How could it have such terrifying power? He suddenly remembered what Suyu had said. Injure that human woman, and he would destroy the entire dragon clan. Now that he thought about it, he realized that it was not a threat. He could really do it. Under the ancestor-level power, even the Dragon Emperor might not be able to withstand it. His heart was shrouded by death, and he was filled with unprecedented fear. Come here. He grabbed another nearby dragon with his dragon claw and used him as a shield. With a blood-curdling scream, the dragon was killed on the spot. At this moment, he did not have the demeanor of one of the top 3 experts of the dragon clan. He was madly dragging his companions down with him, using their flesh and blood to block the terrifying finger shadow. It was not until 8 giant dragons were sacrificed that the finger shadow gradually weakened. Even so, when it hit Long Taiji, half of his body was still destroyed. He was almost wiped out from this world. Having escaped death by luck, Long Taiji panted heavily and stared at Suyu, still in shock. His eyes were filled with deep fear. Suyu did not even look at him. He only looked at the lonely emperor under his feet and said coldly, "No one can save you." Boom! With a flick of his palm, Suyu once again lifted him up and smashed him onto the ground. Long Taiji and the others only watched from the side, but they did not dare to stop them anymore. He could only watch as the lone emperor was smashed again and again until he was a bloody mess. "Save me," the lone emperor pleaded weakly. There was no longer any arrogance or pride in his eyes. But how could Long Taiji and the others dare to make a move? However, if they watched the lone emperor die before their eyes, they would not be able to escape death when they returned. There was only one outcome for them: to be executed by the Dragon Emperor. Seeing that the lone emperor was getting weaker and weaker and was on the verge of death, Long Taiji gritted his teeth and shouted angrily, "Human, stop now. It's not too late to regret. If you really kill the lone emperor, you and your human race, your women, your family, your friends, and the place you used to live will be razed to the ground by the dragon tribe." That sonorous and powerful threatening voice roared across the world. Every sentence was filled with bone-chilling hatred and a deep threat. With the strength of the dragon race, they could indeed wipe out the human race, Suyu's family and friends, and all the civilizations that he had stayed in. "So this is why I have to kill all of you," Suyu said coldly without turning back. Even at this moment, they still did not understand where they had gone wrong. They were still using the people and things that Suyu cared about to threaten him. If he did not wipe out such a dragon race, could he wait for them to recover and come back to destroy the people and things that he cared about? Die. Suyu once again used his finger. Long Taiji's scalp turned numb. Just what was that thing? How could it be activated continuously? But with his previous experience, Long Taiji was mentally prepared. He shouted anxiously, "Form the great formation of 10,000 dragons." The remaining 18 giant dragons, with Long Taiji in the center, began to chant the ancient dragon language of the dragon tribe. All of the giant dragons' dragon scales had a strange blood-red color. The 18 dragons each stood in a position, forming a very strange symbol. The finger shadow came crashing down, but the talisman characters floated and actually blocked it. However, it was only able to block for a moment before the finger shadow continued to move forward and crush the giant dragon at the front into minced meat. Then came the second and third dragons. Long Taiji hid at the back, shouting, "Save the lone emperor!" He and the 3 giant dragons pulled away from the symbol, rushing towards Suyu. Long Taiji grabbed the lone emperor's dragon horn, using all his strength to pull it out from the heaven-destroying rod. At once, dragon blood splattered everywhere. In his weakened state, the lone emperor let out a pathetic groan. But at least he was saved. Suyu's gaze turned cold. He was about to give chase when Long Taiji shouted, "Stop him!" The 2 giant dragons rushed towards Suyu in fear, while Long Taiji quickly escaped with the lone emperor. At that moment, the finger continued to crush the giant dragons. Its energy was exhausted, and it finally collapsed. The 10 giant dragons that were lucky enough to survive followed Long Taiji, fleeing in panic. Only the 2 giant dragons were left behind to block Suyu. "Human, stop before you go too far. Otherwise, you will not be able to bear the consequences." The 2 giant dragons shouted angrily. What did it mean to stop before going too far? If Suyu did not have the ability to fight them, if Suyu was really just an insignificant ant, would they stop before going too far? No. Qin Xiener would be cruelly killed by them, and Suyu would be cruelly killed by them. When it was their turn to be hunted down, they asked Suyu to stop before going too far. "The ones who are least qualified to tell me to stop before going too far are you." Suyu retrieved the bizarre feather of the ancestral dragon and injected a drop of the insect ancestor's blood essence into it. Creak! The bizarre feather of the ancestral dragon moved, drawing a strange arc in the air. The arc passed through the giant bodies of the 2 giant dragons, cutting them in half as easily as if they were pieces of paper. As dragon blood soared into the sky, Suyu, who was covered in dragon blood, cut through the air and caught up with the group of dragons. The dragons, who had already fled far away and felt slightly safe, all shuddered when they sensed the incomparably cold figure behind them. Turning their heads to look, they saw a person covered in blood, like a blood demon that had crawled out of the 9 serenities, following closely behind them. A chill, as if they had fallen into an ice house, welled up in their hearts at the same time. The lone emperor's teeth were chattering, and he said, "Long Taiji, quickly go and tell him that the lone emperor, was wrong." Long Taiji's heart trembled. It's too late. If he had a choice, he would definitely not have allowed the lone emperor to come to the North Shore civilization. Moreover, he would not have bullied the weak to take revenge on the North Shore civilization. Or, even if the lone emperor had listened to the warning of the human and not harmed the human girl, there would still have been a way to salvage the situation. It was too late for regrets now. Looking at the blood shadow chasing after them, Long Taiji felt that the one chasing after them was not some half-step-down master human, but an extremely ferocious being who was on par with the Dragon Emperor. You shouldn't have attacked that human girl. Long Taiji was filled with regret. Why had he not stopped the lone emperor at that time? It was a pity that there were no ifs. All of you stay here. Long Taiji shouted at the remaining 10 giant dragons. The 10 giant dragons were extremely unwilling to accept this. Why? It was clearly the lone emperor's fault. They had not done anything. So why should they pay for the lone emperor's mistake? If they stayed here, they would definitely die. However, the hierarchy of the dragon clan was strict, and they could not ignore Long Taiji's words. Filled with extreme unwillingness, they could only choose to stay. They turned around and looked at the blood shadow, who was chasing after them rapidly. All of the giant dragons swallowed hard, their hearts filled with fear. Die. They would definitely die. The giant dragons' giant bodies could not help but tremble. The moment before death had instead stimulated their desire to live. Go all out, one of the late-stage heaven-tier giant dragons said with a trembling voice. The other giant dragons mustered their courage and prepared to face death. However, at this moment, the attacking blood shadow shouted coldly, "Those who surrender will not be killed, but those who resist will be killed without mercy." The 2 attacks had already killed 21 giant dragons. If the lone emperor and Long Taiji were killed, it would be 20 dragons. Just as he had said, 1 drop of blood, 1 dragon. Making Cien spit out 23 drops of blood would mean killing 23 dragons. The 10 dragons in front of them could be killed or not. The 10 giant dragons, who had already made up their minds to die, immediately began to struggle. The Dragon Clan was the most noble and proud clan in the Outer Realm. Ever since the Dragon Clan became strong, there had never been a situation where they submitted to another race. Thus, they refused to surrender psychologically. However, the reality was that their bodies were not under their control at all. I surrender. I surrender too. The dragons that were hundreds of thousands of feet tall all prostrated themselves on the ground. Their dragon claws extended forward, their heads lowered. Suyu flew over their heads and shouted, "Hand over the dragon pearls." The dragon pearls were the core of the Dragon Clan and the key to their lives. Once they were controlled by someone, their lives would be in the hands of someone else. However, none of the giant dragons dared to resist, all of them handing over the dragon pearls. Suyu clenched his hand, grabbing all 10 dragon pearls in his palm. "Follow me." Suyu used the ancestral dragon's bizarre feathers, bringing the 10 giant dragons with him. In an instant, he cut through yin and yang and life and death, catching up to Long Taiji and the others, who had long since escaped. The 10 giant dragons were extremely shocked. What kind of nature-defying divine technique was this? He could change yin and yang and life and death with a single thought. Long Taiji was equally shocked. At this moment, he had already escaped to a giant transportation spell. That was a special transportation spell built by the Dragon Clan that led to the various civilizations of the southern region. As long as they escaped, they could immediately head to the large-scale Dragon Clan civilization and receive the protection of many strong fighters. They would be able to escape with their lives. However, what caused Long Taiji to despair was that Suyu had led the 10 giant dragons to block the transportation spell. What made him even more desperate was that after Suyu had appeared, he had smashed the transportation spell with his rod and destroyed it, completely cutting off Long Taiji's hope of escaping. Looking at the 10 giant dragons that had betrayed him, he followed closely behind Suyu. Looking at the heavily injured, lonely emperor, Long Taiji said with grief and indignation, "Human, you are too ruthless. We only injured your woman. Do you really have to kill us like this?" Suyu's expression was indifferent as he said coldly, "I am ruthless because you are even more ruthless." If Suyu did not have the insect ancestor's finger, blood essence, and ancestral dragon's bizarre feathers, would they have let Suyu and Qin Xian'er off? No. Even if Qin Xian'er was injured, they would not have let her off. They would have found Qin Xian'er and killed her on the spot. At that time, did they ever think of killing them? No. Only when the same fate befell on their heads would they angrily berate others for being ruthless and ruthless. They would never consider whether what they had done was right or wrong. Was there a need to forgive such an enemy? If they were forgiven today, they would gather their strength and come back to kill them tomorrow. Chapter 2381. Kindness is only given to friends and kind people. Only cruelty is left for the enemy. Suyu's expression was cold as he took out the insect ancestor's finger. Long Taiji's eyes were filled with grief and indignation. The lonely emperor was also furious. "Can't I admit my mistake? Why do you have to be so cruel?" Even at the brink of death, he still spoke in the same tone, not realizing what he had done wrong. How could Suyu convince himself to forgive such a person? "Die," Suyu said coldly as he moved the finger. In desperation, the lonely emperor's will to live erupted. "I still have to go to the 8-star civilization, to lead the royal family, and to rule the world. I cannot die." His eyes were filled with determination as he stared at Long Taiji's back. "Long Taiji, you'll definitely die. Why don't you grant my wish?" Long Taiji was focused on guarding against Suyu. Why would he be wary of the lonely emperor? Hearing his crazed words, he knew something was wrong. "What are you going to do, Creek?" What answered him was a dragon claw that had penetrated his heart. Long Taiji looked at the dragon claw that had penetrated his chest in disbelief. His heart was beating in the dragon claw. "Creek." The lonely emperor retracted his dragon claw and stared at the heart in his hand. He said mercilessly and cruelly, "You know the reason why the dragon emperor is so powerful. I am merely imitating the dragon emperor and undergoing nirvana." Long Taiji was panting heavily, his life force weakening bit by bit. He wanted to laugh, but he could not. He had thought he would die at Suyu's hands. He had not expected to die at the hands of the person he wanted to protect. Was this a tragedy, or was this a trap of his own making? "Dragon Emperor, so you really taught him the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll." Long Taiji looked up at the empty sky and laughed bitterly. "Even if I did not have this day, I would have ended up like this sooner or later, right?" The speaker did not mean it, but the listener knew. Others might not know what the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll was, but how could Suyu not know? It was the supreme secret book that the epic-making dragon had stolen from the dragon race. A mysterious book from the Tao Abyss. The dragon ancestor had obtained this book from an ordinary divine dragon and had grown into one of the 9 great divine ancestors. The previous generation of the Dragon Clan's royal family had encountered all sorts of accidents as they chased after the epic-making dragon who had stolen the book. As a result, the Dragon Emperor had fallen and the princess had perished. However, since the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll had been snatched away by the epic-making dragon, where did the dragon's sovereign get it from? What was the relationship between the current Dragon Emperor and the epic-making dragons? Was the previous Dragon Emperor really killed by the epic-making dragon alone? It was a pity that the soul of the epic-making dragon had already been transformed by Suyu's soul. Otherwise, he would have been able to discover many secrets through soul-searching. The lone emperor said eerily, "Since you know, then I won't hold back." Ancestral dragon Nirvana. The lone emperor roared. He opened his mouth and swallowed the entire heart. Bang, bang. Immediately, the sound of 2 hearts beating could be heard in his body. Vortexes the size of fists appeared on the surface of the lone emperor's body, producing a targeted suction force. Long Taiji's body turned into sparkling specks of light and was devoured by hundreds of whirlpools, merging into the lone emperor body. As for the lone emperor, his aura rose rapidly. From the late stage of the fish dragon realm, he instantly rose to the early stage of the celestial being realm and then continued to soar. In a few breaths' time, he successfully reached the peak of the celestial being realm. He was only a step away from advancing to the great venerable realm. The pupils of the 10 giant dragons shrank, their hearts filled with fear. This was the ultimate forbidden technique of the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll, Ancestral Dragon Nirvana. It was said that if the descendants of the ancestral dragon devoured enough of their own kind, there was a chance that a trace of the ancestral dragon's bloodline would be born in their bodies. With the horror of the ancestral dragon, even a trace of the ancestral dragon's bloodline could shake the heavens and the earth. Even if the bloodline of the ancestral dragon was not born, one could still use this technique to absorb the other party's essence and make it his own. However, this technique was too evil, and it had long been listed as a forbidden technique by the ancestral dragon, forbidding the descendants from cultivating it. It was also said that once the forbidden technique was used, the dragon clan would be exterminated. Once the cultivation began, the dragon clan would be exterminated. As for the reason, the ancestral dragon did not mention it. However, the royal family of the dragon clan scrupulously abided by the ancestral teachings. Even when the dragon clan had declined, they had never disobeyed the ancestral dragon Minglin. Only the current dragon emperor cultivated this forbidden technique on his own and achieved glory that had never been achieved by the previous dragon emperors. The lone emperor's cultivation had reached the late stage of the celestial being realm, which was enough to show how overbearing this technique was. His cultivation would continue to rise, and he would become a great venerable. What was more worrying was that there was a certain chance that the ancestral dragon's bloodline would appear. Once that happened, the mere finger of the insect ancestor would be no match for it. Su Yu's eyes were cold, and he drew a line in the air with one hand. Between the heavens and the earth, 6 giant gates that blotted out the sky suddenly appeared. Every single one of them represented a kind of concept. Reincarnation. Su Yu was like a fairy who had mastered the 6 paths. He pointed his 5 fingers in succession, and the 6 paths of reincarnation gates opened with a loud rumble. From the 6 giant gates, different colored fairy mists flowed out, and they were filled with mysterious meanings. The law of reincarnation. The 10 giant dragons' scalps went numb. Reincarnation only existed in legends. Very few people even knew whether it existed, let alone cultivating it. However, Su Yu had not only cultivated it, but he had also comprehended its law. Nirvana, you have to ask for my permission first. Su Yu's palm was full of reincarnation. The 6 paths of reincarnation passed through the lone emperor's body. Every time the 6 paths of reincarnation passed through the lone emperor's body, it caused him to retreat a little. When the 6 paths of reincarnation passed through the lone emperor's body, he was forcefully interrupted. Wah! The lone emperor spat out a heart. His cultivation, which was about to break through the great venerable realm, rapidly fell back to the fish dragon later stage like a receding tide. How is this possible? The lone emperor looked at the beating heart of the great venerable realm on the ground in disbelief. The secret technique of the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll was forcefully interrupted. This was impossible, absolutely impossible. Boom! Su Yu pressed his palm, and the 6 paths of reincarnation gate sank into the bottom of the void. He stood with one hand behind his back, and his silver hair was dancing wildly. His cold eyes were looking down on the world, as if he was the supreme ruler of the absolute beginning, looking down on thousands of lives. Nirvana of the ancestral dragon, you are not worthy. Su Yu looked down at him like a god, depriving a mortal of the right to become a god. The lone emperor raised his head suddenly, his eyes filled with hatred. Su Yu, I curse you to die a horrible death. Puff! The lone emperor, who knew he was going to die, used his cultivation and dragon blood to condense a curse on his chest before he died. He used it to activate the curse in the ancient language of the dragon clan of the royal family. Suddenly, Suyu felt a burning sensation on his chest. A ferocious black dragon was imprinted on his chest. The lone emperor's dragon body was rapidly deteriorating, and he was on the verge of death. Ha ha! This is one of the greatest curses of the dragon clan. It will slowly devour your cultivation, your flesh, and you will die a slow, painful death. You will die a worse death than me. The lone emperor laughed at the sky, his laughter filled with hatred. However, he did not laugh for long. This was because before the black dragon curse could take effect, a blood crystal suddenly emerged from Suyu's body. The blood crystal turned into a beautiful, crystal-clear dragon head, devouring the black dragon curse in large mouthfuls. The black dragon curse hurriedly fled in all directions within Suyu's body. However, it could not escape the snow-white dragon head, which devoured it bit by bit. The black dragon curse wanted to resist, but it was obviously not at the same level as the dragon head. The black dragon curse tried to bite the snow-white dragon head, but it did not leave a single scratch. However, the white dragon bit off a large chunk. In the end, the black dragon curse was devoured. Not even a scrap was left. The lone emperor was stunned, unable to believe his eyes. The life and death curse. The peerless curse passed down from generation to generation of the dragon clan. Impossible. That is a curse that only the princess of the dragon clan can cast. However, there is no princess in this empire. There was no princess in this empire, but there was in the previous empire. Princess Linglong had cast a life and death curse on Suyu. The content of the curse was that if Princess Linglong died, Suyu would definitely die. On the other hand, if Suyu died, she would not. Suyu had not cared about the life and death curse for a long time. He did not expect it to be like this. To me, everything you do is the tricks of an ant, Suyu said indifferently. The 10 giant dragons behind him could not help but feel pity for him. The lone emperor was powerful, but he was restrained by Suyu in every aspect. Even the curse, which had been formed with his cultivation and flesh before his death, was restrained by Suyu. Wasn't this too tragic? Am I, the lone emperor, destined to die like this? The lone emperor could not help but let out an angry roar. Suyu's eyes turned cold, and he lashed out with a heaven-destroying rod, smashing the lone emperor into mush on the spot. Are you waiting for someone to save you? Suyu said coldly as he shook off the dragon blood on the heaven-destroying rod. Looking around, Suyu kept Long Taiji's heart. After thinking for a moment, he sealed it in ice. As long as the ice was unsealed, the heart could be revived. Then, he kept Long Taiji's and the lone emperor's corpses. The former was a great venerable realm dragon, while the latter had the royal bloodline of the dragon clan. To him, they were of great use. Moreover, there were some things that he wanted to verify. However, just as Suyu was cleaning up the lone emperor's corpse, the dragon's body started to burn without warning. It was a layer of purplish-black, demonic flames. Suyu accidentally came into contact with it, and it immediately burned his whole body, burning him to ashes. In a short span of a breath, he was burned to death. The flames on the lone emperor's corpse formed an extremely sinister face of the dragon clan. Seeing this face, the 10 giant dragons knelt down in fear, shouting in unison, "Greetings, your majesty, the dragon emperor." The person who had manifested was none other than the dragon emperor. Of course, it was not the dragon emperor himself, but a shred of power that he had left in the lone emperor's body. When the lone emperor died, the hidden power would awaken and manifest. Atone for your sins with your death. The dragon emperor's tone was calm, but it was majestic. The 10 giant dragons were submissive. They raised their claws and smacked their heads, preparing to atone for their sins with their deaths. They had failed to protect the lone emperor, so they deserved the death penalty. However, at that moment, a cold voice came from the ashes that Suyu had turned into. "Your lives are mine. Am I the only one who can kill you?" Swoosh! A strong life force rose from the ashes, turning into a brand new Suyu. The 10 giant dragons came to their senses. Indeed, things are different now. They had completely abandoned the dragon clan and chosen to serve Suyu. What was the point of obeying the Dragon Emperor's decree? Chapter 2382. One by one, the giant dragons came to their senses and put down their dragon claws. This incident was all caused by the lonely emperor himself. His death had nothing to do with them. Why should they die to atone for his sins? You've all grown bold. The Dragon Emperor's flaming giant face shook. The 10 giant dragons were silent, not daring to refute or even look the Dragon Emperor in the eye. The Dragon Emperor glanced at them coldly, then looked up at Suyu. He said indifferently, "Have you come back to life? Or am I seeing things?" He had clearly sensed that Suyu's life had been extinguished. Why did he suddenly come back to life? It doesn't matter. What matters is that if you have something to say, then say it. If not, then scram. Suyu said coldly. The Dragon Emperor would not speak without thinking. Young human, you have 2 choices. One is to join the Dragon Clan, and the other is for me to hunt you down. Which one will you choose? The Dragon Emperor said simply. Joining the dragon race sounded good, but in reality, was there a need to ask what the outcome would be if one really joined? How would he be treated when he had a close relationship with the royal family of the previous dynasty, cultivated the evil Dragon Bible, and killed the #1 genius of the Dragon Clan? Death might not be the worst outcome. I won't choose either, Suyu said calmly. He had dared to rob the 3rd ancestor's belongings, so why would he fear the Dragon Emperor? The Dragon Emperor nodded slightly. Understand. I will personally hunt you down and kill you until you die without a burial place. As he finished speaking, the flames disappeared. Finally, the Dragon Emperor's vague warning sounded. Remember what I said? Puff. The flames were extinguished, leaving only the Dragon Emperor's words floating in the air. So he did not take it seriously. He led the 10 giant dragons away from the place. The commotion just now was too great. It was not safe to stay here any longer. Little did he know, in a secret chamber far away in the Tai Chi civilization, as a member of the Cauldron, Princess Linglong of the Dragon Clan was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Princess Linglong had nourished her soul with Princess Rooken's body. Just as she was cultivating, she suddenly opened her eyes, which were filled with astonishment. An ice crystal appeared in her body. The terrifying power of a Tao Lord flowed out from within the ice crystal, and it madly fused with his body. This is... Princess Linglong was in disbelief. This is the curse on Suyu's body. It has absorbed the power of some almighty dragon. How is this possible? She was full of bewilderment, but she couldn't afford to be distracted. How could an ordinary body possibly endure the powerful energy of a Tao Lord? Myriad dragons' ingestion of water. At the critical moment, Princess Linglong executed a secret technique of the royal family and quickly digested the power of the Tao Master that descended from the sky. His body was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Layers of crystal skin peeled off from his body. The aura emanating from his body was like a golden silkworm breaking out of its cocoon, rising rapidly. The commotion attracted many experts from the primal chaos civilization. When they sensed the majestic power of a Tao Lord, all of them were shocked. After an entire day had passed, Princess Linglong slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with surprise and regret. What surprised her was that with the help of those Tao Lords, she had successfully recovered to the peak of her cultivation and reached the perfect state of forgetting words. Regrettably, the power was too immense. She only had time to absorb 1/10 of it. The remaining 9/10 were all wasted. Otherwise, she could have broken through to the later stage of the fish dragon realm. Princess Linglong, congratulations. The King of Darkness was the first to arrive. He was deeply surprised. Princess Linglong didn't take it to heart. She looked into the distance, thoughtfully. The one who should be thanked is Suyu. She had never thought that the life-and-death curse that she had placed on Suyu to save her life would one day bring her a great opportunity. What was even more unexpected was that Suyu's current enemy was already at the level of a fish dragon realm master. It had only been 30 years since they last met, and he had already become so powerful. On the other side, in a dark galaxy, a gloomy young man crushed a 6-star civilization with a kick. That civilization was the one that Suyu passed by when he fought with the second clone of Xiaoyao, son of heaven. With a kick from the young man, a civilization that had existed for an entire era was easily crushed as if it was made of mud. In the blink of an eye, all the creatures on it were destroyed in the sudden disaster. Damn it, where is he hiding? The young man was none other than the second clone of Xiaoyao, son of heaven. After more than 10 years, he had finally found the vicinity. However, he couldn't pinpoint Su Yu's exact location. Filled with resentment, he casually kicked a nearby civilization to vent his anger and destroyed it. Right at this moment, Xiaoyao, son of heaven, seemed to sense something and looked toward the border of the west region. Immediately, a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. I was wondering where the ancestral level power came from. It turns out to be the pests of the last era. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. However, the appearance of the ancestral level power made him speculate. That little saint carries the expectations of the world and has always been blessed with opportunities. Xiaoyao, son of heaven, said thoughtfully. Looking at the time, it should be when the 8-star civilizations recruited the extraterrestrial creatures, right? That kid shouldn't miss it. Then he closed his eyes as if he was receiving some kind of message. After a while, he raised his eyes and looked toward the east region. All right, I will wait for you there. Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed. Xiaoyao, son of heaven, left in a flash, setting off a gale that blew away groups of civilizations. Several days later, a group of mighty strong men from the shore civilization finally caught up with the aura of the dragon clan. They were already mentally prepared for a battle to the death. However, when they arrived near a civilization at the border of the south region, they were all shocked when they saw the scene on the ground. Giant dragon corpses were lying coldly in the void. Judging from their wounds, they were all killed by a magnificent and matchless power. They were killed with one strike, without exception. Near the corpses, there was a weak ancestral level power that made them shudder before they even got close. Who did it? The master of the 1,000 insects civilization gasped. It was easy to kill a celestial being realm dragon, but to kill so many of them with one strike, even the South Pole immortal could not do it. Everyone was shocked as they stared at the horrifying scene. Among them, only the divine flame female demonic demon knew who did it. Apart from that senior, no one could easily kill dozens of giant dragons like they were bugs, right? The senior finally made a move. The divine flame female demonic demon said. Thinking of the senior's disdain for the dragon clan, she felt very helpless. The dragon clan really provoked someone they shouldn't have. Really, of all people, why did they have to capture the senior's disciple's woman? Wasn't this asking for death in the middle of the night? The divine flame female demonic demon's eyes turned, and she immediately pounced forward while the others were still distracted and collected the 5 giant dragon corpses. These were all celestial being realm dragon corpses, and their materials were extremely precious. Normally, they would not even be able to think about it. Only at this moment could she obtain 8 of them. The South Pole immortal hermit also came to his senses and joined in the fight. However, all the other powerful beings also came to their senses and joined in. Thus, he only managed to obtain 5, and the rest were divided among the powerful beings. Because of this, a lot of internal strife broke out among the various forces, and they all fought with each other. Fortunately, the South Pole immortal hermit and the divine flame female demonic demon were able to suppress the situation and calm the chaos. Let me see what happened. The South Pole immortal hermit's beard fluttered in the wind as he waved his sleeves as if he was painting. Wisps of lost aura gathered from nearby and formed an image in the air. When the image appeared, many of the Western region mighty figures felt their scalps go numb. In the image, dozens of giant dragons were fleeing in panic. Behind them, in the boundless darkness, there was a blurry figure covered in blood, as if it had crawled out from hell. Who is that person? How could he chase after so many dragons alone? To be precise, Long Taiji is also being chased. The South Pole Immortal Hermit's expression was unprecedentedly grave. The South Pole Immortal Hermit, who had fought with him personally, knew how terrifying Long Taiji was. However, someone as powerful as him was being chased by a man shrouded in blood. There is such an unparalleled demon in the Western region. Someone mistakenly thought that Su Yu was from the demonic path. The demonic path in the Western region was not flourishing, and no one had ever heard of such a terrifying demonic path. Could it be Mo Qinglong from the northern region? Among the eastern, southern, western, and northern regions, the demonic path in the northern region was the most prosperous. Among them, the most famous one was Mo Qinglong, who was known as the #1 demon in the northern region. It was rumored that Mo Qinglong's abilities were earth-shattering, and he was comparable to the Dragon Emperor. Only if he personally attacked could he chase after Long Taiji and the others, causing them to flee in panic. The recruitment of the 8-star civilizations is imminent, and the unparalleled almighties are coming one after another. One eventful time, a master of civilization exclaimed. The South Pole Immortal Hermit frowned slightly. Was that Blood Shadow really Mo Qinglong? Mo Qinglong had never left the northern region, so why would he appear without warning and even chase after the Dragon Clan? However, the most important thing now was to find the disciples who had been captured. The crowd dispersed and found the bound disciples in the nearby civilizations. Apart from 2 of them who had died tragically, the others were all safe and sound. Some masters of civilization tried to ask them if they knew anything, but none of them could answer. They could only feel the terrifying fluctuations of the battle, but they did not know who was fighting with the Dragon Clan. However, a piece of information appeared, causing all the forces to become excited. Master, it seems like that person is here for Junior Sister Qin. Hai Qingxiao's face was a little pale. The South Pole Immortal Hermit's eyes flashed. Explain clearly. Thus, Hai Qingxiao told him about Qin Xiener being burned to death and the sudden appearance of that person. Where is Qin Xiener? The South Pole Immortal Hermit looked around, only to find that Qin Xiener was nowhere to be found. The rest of the forces were also shocked. Mo Qinglong was here for Qin Xiener of the South Pole Immortal Palace? It was obvious what that meant. Search for Qin Xiener with everything we have. The South Pole Immortal Hermit's heart was moved. Regardless of whether that person shrouded in blood shadow was Mo Qinglong or not, as long as he could use Qin Xiener and pull her to his side, she would be a peerless help. Instantly, everyone from the South Pole civilization spread out to search for Qin Xiener. 2 days later, someone finally found Qin Xiener, who was still recovering from her injuries, in a certain abandoned place. When the South Pole Immortal Hermit heard the news, he personally rushed over and asked about her well-being. Chapter 2383. Xiener, who is the senior who saved you? South Pole Immortal Wang asked in a pleasant manner. Is senior referring to Su Yu? She didn't understand why they had mistaken Su Yu for senior, but it was obvious that Su Yu was fine. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, was finally at ease. I finally have a chance to apologize to him face to face. Qin Xiener was looking forward to seeing Su Yu again. Xiener, can't you tell me? Seeing that Qin Xien didn't reply, the South Pole Immortal Old Man asked kindly. Qin Xiener shook her head. I don't know who you are either. She knew that it would be best not to expose Su Yu. Hearing this, the leaders of the 4 forces were disappointed. The South Pole Immortal One also felt that it was a pity. It seemed that the relationship between Qin Xiener and the man shrouded in bloody shadows was not deep. At least, not as much as they had imagined. All right, that's all. Follow me back to the shore civilization, South Pole Immortal Hermit said expressionlessly. Among them, the one who felt the most relieved was Tai Bufan, the eldest senior brother. He was afraid that the South Pole Immortal One would put Qin Xiener in an important position because of that mysterious senior. So it was a false alarm. Junior Sister Qin, it seems like you can't change your fate. Tai Bufan stared at Qin Xiener as pity flashed in his eyes. The South Pole Immortal One had never been a kind person, and he would never save her for no reason. He had his own intentions, but he had been hiding it from Qin Xiener, who was completely unaware of it. The crowd returned one after another. Apart from the divine flame, demonic woman, and the others, no one else knew that Suyu had been here before. In a certain remote, small civilization in the southern region, 10 colossal dragons were standing guard outside. Inside was a spatial isolation formation. Within the formation, Suyu was calculating his gains and losses. The biggest gain was naturally Qin Xian'er's safety. Just this alone made any losses insignificant. Next were Long Taiji's body and heart. What he lost was 100 drops of Dragon Emperor blood and 4 drops of insect ancestor blood essence. The former was still manageable, but the latter was irreparable. Of the 10 drops of blood essence, only 3 were left. As a life-saving treasure, the insect ancestor's blood essence must be used cautiously in the future. After taking a look at Long Taiji's corpse in the space ring, Suyu tried to retrieve the dragon's blood. Unfortunately, he only took out 1,000 drops. This was because most of the essence in his body had been devoured by the lone emperor's nirvana of the ancestral dragon. Suyu tried to integrate 1,000 drops of the dragon's blood into his body. As a result, the blood essence was just enough to cover the 100 drops of the dragon emperor's blood that he had lost previously. A difference of 10 times. Suyu stroked his chin. The gap between the dragon emperor and Long Taiji seems to be larger than I imagined. Long Taiji was a late-stage venerable. As for the dragon monarch, just his blood essence was 10 times stronger than Long Taiji's. Just how powerful was his strength? Perfected great venerable realm? Or would he surpass the yellow Tao Lord and enter the ranks of the profound Tao Lords? Ancestral dragon's nirvana. Isn't this technique a little too heaven-defying? Suyu furrowed his brows. The Dragon Emperor had grown to become the strongest man in the southern region in such a short period of time, and he even claimed to be the strongest man in the outer regions. It was obvious how powerful the ancestral dragon's nirvana was. He even saw the lone emperor's cultivation level skyrocket after he cast the ancestral dragon's nirvana. The heavenly law is constant, and there are gains and losses. Such a drastic increase in cultivation should have a great drawback, Suyu muttered to himself. If that wasn't the case, why would the lone emperor only use this secret technique at the critical moment? With a thought, Suyu summoned the evil dragon. "My friend, what can I do for you?" the evil dragon asked. Suddenly, he noticed the 10 giant dragons beside Suyu and was shocked. Suyu pondered for a moment before asking, "Do you know the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll, a secret technique of the Dragon Clan's royal family?" The surprised evil dragon's face suddenly turned serious and solemn. "Of course I do. Why do you ask?" Suyu then told him about the lone emperor's transformation. Although the evil dragon's cultivation level was low, he knew a lot about the Dragon Clan's secrets. He said, "My friend, you don't have to be so surprised. The ancestral dragon's nirvana is a forbidden technique, and a user usually can't live for more than a year after casting it." A year? The price was indeed too high. A year's time was just a snap of the fingers for such a powerful man. Wait, what's going on with the Dragon Emperor? Why is he still alive after cultivating the ancestral dragon's nirvana? Suyu asked again. The evil dragon shook his head with certainty. He's definitely not cultivating the ancestral dragon's nirvana. After thinking about it carefully, Suyu also felt that there was a big problem. If the Dragon Emperor really cultivated this technique, why was his cultivation still at the peak of the great venerable realm? After days and months of devouring, he must have reached an unimaginably terrifying level. The Dragon Emperor is really mysterious, Suyu muttered. The evil dragon's eyes flickered as he said, "You obtained the heart of a great venerable dragon? If that's true, I think it might be able to help you cultivate the Sky Dragon body to a higher level." Currently, Suyu's Sky Dragon body was only at the intermediate level, and he was still a long way from reaching the higher level. How do I do it? Suyu was even more puzzled. The evil dragon was just an ordinary dragon at the Emperor realm. How could he know so many secrets? It's very simple. You just need to use the evil dragon's rebirth secret technique from the Evil Dragon Bible to succeed, the evil dragon said. However, apart from that, You also need to obtain the complete skeleton of 100 giant dragons. Suyu frowned slightly. A complete skeleton of a dragon was easy to obtain, but where could he find 100? Every generation of the Dragon Clan has a place where the remains of dragons are buried, and it's called the Divine Dragon Cemetery, the evil dragon said. If you want to find 100 giant dragon skeletons, you can only go to the Divine Dragon Cemetery. Suyu fell silent. Putting aside the fact that he hated stealing corpses, the consequences of trespassing into the Divine Dragon Cemetery with his current identity were enough to make him cautious. As if seeing through Suyu's thoughts, the evil dragon chuckled. If there's really no other way, you can go to the Divine Dragon battlefield to try your luck. The 10 giant dragons around them cast surprised looks at the evil dragon. This dragon seemed to know a lot. The Divine Dragon battlefield wasn't a place that everyone knew about. Most of the dragons didn't even know of its existence. What is that place? If it was on the battlefield, there would be nothing to be afraid of. The evil dragon said, "It's in the northernmost part of the southern region. That was the place where the previous dragon emperor hunted down the epic-making dragons. The number of dead dragons was no less than 10,000. Most of them have been taken away by the dragons, but some of them are buried deeper, or they were left there for some special reasons." Suyu's eyes flickered. That place must be very dangerous, right? If there was no risk, it would have been dug up by those who knew about it. The most dangerous thing is the remains themselves. They have evolved into skeletal dragons over the years. If you accidentally awaken them, it will be very dangerous. The evil dragon seemed to know that place like the back of its hand. The weakest skeletal dragon is at the celestial realm, and the strongest is probably at the great venerable realm. Suyu's eyes narrowed. There were even great venerables. In his current condition, it was best not to fight head-on with beings at the great venerable realm. How you decide is up to you, the evil dragon said as it handed the coordinates of the Divine Dragon battlefield to Suyu, then returned to the space storage device. Suyu was deep in thought. The cemetery might be easier, but he wasn't willing to do that. "Let's go to the battlefield," Suyu said as he stood up. However, the 10 giant dragons behind him hesitated. One of the giant dragons at the later stage of the celestial realm said hesitantly, "Master, the battlefield is the forbidden land of the dragons. Those who enter rarely come back alive. Besides," it stared at the space storage device where the evil dragon was. "Besides, that evil dragon doesn't look like an ordinary dragon to me. At least, an ordinary dragon wouldn't be able to master the evil dragon Bible. This scripture is the greatest treasure of the dragons, second only to the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll. Many years ago, it was taken away by the first guardian of the dragons, Long Feiyun. Why would it appear in the hands of a small evil dragon? Master, you'd better not believe the words of this dragon." In fact, even without their reminder, Suyu had sensed that something was amiss. From the moment the evil dragon had crafted the evil King Pearl, Suyu had been suspicious. Don't use people you doubt. Since Suyu had decided to follow the evil dragon's suggestion, he shouldn't be afraid. "Let's go." The 10 giant dragons had no choice but to follow Suyu toward the Divine Dragon battlefield. 2 years later, at the northernmost part of the Dragon Clan, both the civilization and the void were filled with a thick, cold air. The civilizations were all frozen into ice, as if they were wrapped in silver. There were no living creatures in the civilizations, and the void was dead silent. From the distribution of the civilizations, one could see how prosperous the river of civilization had been. However, for some unknown reason, the place was filled with cold air, making the civilizations uninhabitable. In the end, they were abandoned and became abandoned. This is the Divine Dragon battlefield. If we go deeper, it will be the territory of the skeletal dragons. A giant dragon stared into the dark depths of the universe, its voice filled with unspeakable fear. No one knew how many skeletal dragons remained in the darkness. All they knew was that from ancient times until now, very few of those who entered the battlefield survived. After thinking about it, Suyu said, "Hide in the nearby civilizations and don't reveal your auras. I will go alone." During the 2 years, he had secretly communicated with the evil dragons. These skeletal dragons were very sensitive to the auras of the dragon race. If 10 living giant dragons entered the area where the skeletal dragons roamed, they would immediately be alerted. Therefore, it would be inconvenient to bring them along. It was better for Suyu to go alone. Whoosh! Suyu entered the incomparably deep darkness without making a sound. The deeper he went, the colder the cold air became. The darkness in front of him grew deeper, and he could not even see his fingers in front of him. Suyu had no choice but to use his transparent eye to break through the darkness and see the scene in front of him clearly. Suyu was shocked by what he saw. It turned out that just 30 feet in front of him, there was a huge snow-white mountain ridge in front of him. He had almost collided with it. Looking up, Suyu realized that it was the remains of a giant dragon that was tens of thousands of feet long. What was slightly different was that the remains of the giant dragon seemed to be alive. Its entire body expanded and shrank as it breathed. Skeletal dragon, Suyu immediately realized. The aura that was faintly emanating from its body shocked Suyu. Later stage of celestial realm. Suyu held his breath, afraid that he would cause a commotion and wake it up. The first skeletal dragon he had discovered was at the later stage of celestial realm. He carefully took out a bright red rope and wrapped it around the skeletal dragon bit by bit. Although the rope was thin, it was personally crafted by the evil dragon to restrain skeletal dragons. Chapter 2384. Half an hour later, Suyu had quietly wrapped the rope around more than half of the bone dragon's body. He only needed to wrap the front half of the body before he could successfully tame the first bone dragon. However, what Suyu did not expect was that at this moment, the bone dragon's 10,000-foot-long body suddenly trembled. Its body quickly stretched out from its crouching position. In its empty eye sockets, 2 dim yellow flames lit up without warning. A powerful consciousness was emitted from his head. Suyu's heart thumped. It's over. He must have awakened the bone dragon by accident. One bone dragon was not scary. At most, he could sacrifice a drop of the insect ancestor's blood to kill it. However, the evil dragon had said that the bone dragons could sense each other. Often, the awakening of one bone dragon would lead to the awakening of the other bone dragons. Therefore, even if Suyu used all 3 drops of ancestral blood, he might not be able to deal with all the bone dragons. Therefore, once the bone dragons were awakened, Suyu needed to escape immediately and find a place to wait patiently for a year and a half, waiting for them to fall into a deep sleep again. Roar! A low and desolate dragon roar came from the bone dragon's body. Its huge body began to sway vigorously. In the darkness not far from Suyu, 3 intense dragon roars could be heard. The pressure brought about by each dragon roar was not much weaker than the giant dragon in front of him. Suyu took out the ancestral dragon's strange feather and prepared to leave this place without hesitation. However, the awakened ancestor dragons did not have any intention of chasing after Suyu. They did not even notice Suyu's existence. Even the bone dragon that was half tied up by Suyu merely looked at the rope on the surface of its body doubtfully before struggling to break free. Then, the several bone dragons called out to each other and swam deeper into the darkness together. Suyu retrieved the ancestral dragon's strange feather, surprised. The bone dragons were creatures without intelligence. Now that they had all awakened and were heading in the same direction, could something big have happened there? With that in mind, Suyu quietly attached himself to the giant bone dragon's body and followed them deeper into the darkness. Along the way, he heard the bone dragons roar from time to time. They were all swimming in the same direction, and their speed was getting faster and faster, until a pale white light appeared in front of him. It was a gigantic golden scale. However, its color was extremely dim, as if it had experienced too much time. Its radiance had been wiped away, releasing a deathly pale light. Under the scale, a man in a black robe was fighting 3 bone dragons. What shocked Suyu was that the 3 bone dragons were all bone dragons of the Great Venerable Realm. With a swing, the earth shook and the mountains shook. 3 Great Venerable Realm bone dragons stacked together were enough to sweep through a region. However, What was even more shocking was that the black-robed man was able to fight 3 giant dragons by himself and was not at a disadvantage at all. The bone venerable dragon of the 3 dragons of the dragon of the venerable. The 3 great venerable realm bone dragons roared again and again. They launched frenzied attacks, but to no avail. When the skeletal dragon that Suyu was riding on arrived, the 3 skeletal dragons roared in unison. All the other skeletal dragons that had rushed over to assist the 3 skeletal dragons in dealing with the black-robed man. Under the crazy attack of hundreds of bone dragons, the black-robed man was finally at a disadvantage. His black robe was torn apart by a bone dragon of the great venerable realm, revealing his true form. What was rather surprising was that it was actually a woman, a very cold woman dressed in black. Her whole body was filled with a monstrous demonic energy. Every move she made gave off a tremendous pressure. Suyu had only seen such an aura from the divine flame, demonic woman. Who was she? Suyu wondered. The woman's black robe was torn off, and her face was filled with hostility. A bunch of dragons who died with grievances. As she spoke, she patted her waist and took out a small black gourd. Suyu didn't know what grade the small gourd was. He stared at the mouth of the black gourd and had a very bad feeling. Heavenly abyss, demonic gourd. Keep. The woman raised the gourd and shouted at the nearest bone dragon of the great venerable realm. Suddenly, a beam of black light shot out from the gourd. The black light shone on the body of the bone dragon. The bone dragon of the great venerable realm was sucked into the gourd. The surface of the gourd was wriggling faintly. It was the bone dragon struggling inside, trying to break out of the gourd. However, the gourd's material was extremely hard, and it didn't succeed. Then, the woman raised the gourd and shone it again and again. Every time it shone, a bone dragon was sucked away. Within the time it took for a joss stick to burn, hundreds of bone dragons were sucked away by the mysterious woman with the gourd. However, the price paid by the woman was not low. Her face was as pale as a piece of paper, and she was panting heavily. Both her Pathmaster's strength and physical strength had been greatly consumed. She hung the gourd back on her waist with difficulty and wiped the sweat off her forehead. I didn't wake the bone dragons. Why did they suddenly wake up? While muttering softly, the woman circled around the giant scale, searching for it. From time to time, she would dig around the scale as if she was looking for something. After searching for a long time, she found nothing. The woman stood on the spot, lost in thought, and said to herself, "It should be right. The previous Dragon Emperor did fall here. Why is there only one scale?" Suyu, who had turned into a speck of dust, was confused. The Dragon Emperor fell here? Didn't he fall in the civilization of the Sea of Constellations? He had seen the Dragon Emperor's body with his own eyes. His inherited treasure, the royal power dragon sovereign sword, was also obtained there. Suddenly, the woman seemed to have sensed something, and she looked in Suyu's direction coldly. "Come out." As he spoke, a wisp of extremely tyrannical devil chi shot straight over. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Have I been discovered? Just as he was about to move, a strange, intense fluctuation appeared not far away from him. A giant dragon with a strange aura and an extremely old appearance appeared. He had transformed into a hunchbacked old man, holding a walking stick. He looked at the demonic energy that was attacking him calmly. However, when the demonic energy was 3 feet away from him, it was easily blocked by an invisible energy wall. Seeing this, the woman's pupils shrank, and she stared at the person in front of her without blinking. The Dragon Emperor? What? Suyu, who was hiding in the dark, was shocked. The old man in front of him was the current Dragon Emperor? Wasn't it rumored that he wasn't particularly old? Why did he look so old? He looked even older than the old monsters like the South Pole Fairy Wong, who had lived for an era. Haha, isn't it a pleasure to have a friend come from afar? The Dragon Emperor smiled calmly. Mo Qinglong has come to the southern region personally. I should welcome you personally. Suyu was surprised once again. That demonic woman was Mo Qinglong from the northern region. Suyu had naturally heard of the number 1 demonic person in the northern region, Mo Qinglong. It was said that she was an unparalleled demonic cultivator with unfathomable strength, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Dragon Emperor. To think that she was a woman, just like the divine flame demonic woman. Suyu had never thought that she, who had never stepped out of the northern region, would appear in the ancient battlefield of the southern region's dragon clan. Mo Qinglong stared at the Dragon Emperor, her crystalline eyes filled with self-blame. I was careless. It seems like you discovered me the moment I entered the southern region. If I'm not mistaken, you were the one who awakened the bone dragons just now, weren't you? Mo Qinglong asked. In order to deal with those bone dragons, she had expended a lot of energy. This was probably the result that the Dragon Emperor wanted to see. Under normal circumstances, she might not have been afraid of the Dragon Emperor. But now, the Dragon Emperor was much more cunning and cautious than she had imagined. Of course, I noticed you when you entered the southern territory. Otherwise, I would be chasing after a human right now and not keeping a close eye on you. The Dragon Monarch's eyes narrowed, and they emitted a sinister aura. Mo Qinglong secretly recovered while pretending to be calm. Since I've been discovered, I have nothing to say. Yes, I'm here to find the remains of the Dragon Emperor, but so what? As a demonic cultivator, it was unbelievable that she needed the remains of the Dragon Clan. Nothing. I just want to tell you that if the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were here, would it be your turn to find them? The Dragon Emperor said calmly. I've searched this place no less than 10,000 times. In other words, even he did not know where the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were. Mo Qinglong sighed softly. Before coming here, she had thought about it. However, the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were of great use to her. Even if the chances were slim, she still wanted to search for them. Unfortunately, that sliver of luck was gone. However, although she did not obtain the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor, the remains of the other dragons could still be used. This trip was not in vain. If that's the case, I'll take my leave. Mo Qinglong spread a pair of giant wings behind her back and instantly rushed out into the sky. However, her figure crashed into an invisible wall of air and bounced back, just like the mysterious wall of air on the surface of the Dragon Emperor's body. 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy. Mo Qinglong's face darkened. She turned her head and stared at the Dragon Emperor. What do you mean? The Dragon Emperor smiled calmly. Do you think the southern region is a place where you can come and go as you please? Mo Qinglong, seeing that you are the #1 person in the northern region, I won't kill you. However, I need to take 300 million years of your lifespan for my own use. Hearing that, Mo Qinglong laughed angrily. 300 million years? How dare you ask for that? With my cultivation level, I have less than 300 million years of lifespan left. Heaven and earth had an end, let alone living beings. Mo Qinglong's own lifespan was less than 300 million years. How could she be willing to give it to the Dragon Emperor? Suyu's heart stirred. Why did the Dragon Emperor ask for lifespan? Could it be that after cultivating the ancestral dragon's nirvana, he had thought of a way to replenish his lifespan? The Dragon Emperor's eyes were calm. If you hand it over, you can leave. If you don't, you'll stay forever. The choice is up to you. His calm tone was filled with boundless overbearingness. Mo Qinglong snorted coldly. That depends on how capable you are to make me stay. Swish! Mo Qinglong's body shot out thousands of black lights, shooting towards the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy in front of her. With a poof, the tight wall of air was pierced through by Mo Qinglong. However, before she could leave, the Dragon Emperor tapped his walking stick lightly. Instantly, the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy formed a dragon claw and slammed down. The demonic energy on the surface of Mo Qinglong's body dispersed wildly, and her body was pressed down rapidly. If she was at her peak, Mo Qinglong would not be afraid. However, because she had been plotted against, her strength as a pathmaster was lacking, and she could not continue. Her crystalline eyes flashed, and she changed direction, rushing towards where Suyu was. She said coldly, "You have been watching in secret for so long. Are you still not going to show yourself?" As she spoke, a black light shot out from her mouth, shooting straight at Suyu. Chapter 2385. Suyu's expression was calm, and he was not surprised at all. He had experienced too many similar situations. As the black light approached, the space around Suyu swirled and engulfed it. Then, Suyu appeared in front of the two of them in a folded manner. The Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes. Spatial domain. I've been in seclusion for so many years. How come I didn't know that there were so many spatial domain experts in the Outer District? First, there was a human who killed the lone emperor, Long Taiji, and many dragons. Then, there was a mysterious person who barged into the dragon race's battlefield. When did spatial domains become so rampant? His voice contained the pressure of Mount Tai. Wherever his voice passed, it caused the air to tremble. As the voice brushed past the surface of Suyu's body, it dispersed the thunderbolts on the surface of his body, revealing an extremely handsome, silver-haired human. It really is you. Why isn't this empress surprised at all? How could someone who dared to trespass on the divine dragon battlefield be a coward? Suyu had the guts to kill the lone emperor and Long Taiji, so what was the point of barging into the divine dragon battlefield to him? And then, Suyu calmly asked, standing beside Mo Qinglong without batting an eyelid. Mo Qinglong looked at Suyu in surprise, and when he saw his cultivation, his eyes were filled with indescribable disappointment. He was actually only a half-step Dowlord. She guessed that since this person dared to venture into the depths of the divine dragon battlefield and hid himself so well, even if his cultivation was not as good as hers, he should still be quite good. If the two of them worked together, they might be able to contend against the Dragon Monarch. Who would have expected that it would actually be a half-step Dowlord? It was truly a huge surprise to her. However, she rolled her eyes and looked back and forth between Suyu and the Dragon Emperor. Why did it sound like there was some sort of enmity between the two of them? But what enmity could there be between a half-step Dowlord and a supreme Dragon Monarch? To be precise, did the former have the right to bear grudges against the latter? And then, the Dragon Monarch smiled calmly. Human, you are very confident that you can leave this place alive. As he spoke, the Dragon Emperor tapped the ground with his walking stick. The 9-5 chi in the sky instantly condensed into a giant claw that slammed down towards him. Just now, Mo Qinglong was directly slapped down by a similar palm, and he had no strength to resist. How could Suyu resist it? Mo Qinglong sighed in his heart and was about to dodge. She felt that she had made a mistake. The youth in front of him wasn't a suitable partner at all. To her surprise, Suyu said calmly, "Let's make a deal. Give me all the skeletal dragons in that gourd. In exchange, I'll take you out of here alive," Suyu said nonchalantly without looking at her. Upon hearing this, Mo Qinglong looked at Suyu in disbelief. His gaze seemed to be asking whether he had heard wrongly. "You didn't hear me wrong. Whether you agree or not, it's all up to you," Suyu said calmly, while he secretly took out the insect ancestor's finger. He only needed one strike to kill the Dragon Monarch on the spot. Mo Qinglong looked at Suyu. Her rationality told her that only a lunatic would believe a human youth who was a half-step down master. But looking at his unusually calm face, she somehow believed him. "Yes, as long as you can do it." "All right." Whoosh! When a 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy slammed down, Suyu took out the insect ancestor's finger and crushed it towards the Dragon Emperor. However, the Dragon Emperor's old eyes remained calm. Suyu was puzzled. Could something be wrong? But since things had already come to this, he had no other choice. He activated a drop of insect ancestor's blood essence and completely activated his finger. Boom! With a dull thud, the insect ancestor's finger turned into a giant shadow that covered the sky and pressed down on the Dragon Emperor's body. Puff! The Dragon Emperor turned into broken pearls on the spot. He couldn't have been more dead. Looking at the broken pearls that filled the sky, Suyu had a surreal feeling. How could he die so easily? Long Taiji could escape several times, but the Dragon Emperor died so easily. It was unbelievable. But no matter what, the Dragon Emperor was indeed dead. Suyu turned around slowly and looked at Mo Qinglong, whose face was filled with shock. He extended his palm. "Give it to me." Mo Qinglong hid his shocked expression and regained his composure. He looked at the finger in his palm thoughtfully, and his eyes flickered. "Let's make another deal. I'll use the stardust of the North Domain in exchange for this finger, and I'll do something for you. What do you think?" Su didn't know what the stardust of the North Domain was. He also didn't know how useful Mo Qinglong's help would be. What he knew was that those conditions couldn't be exchanged for the insect ancestor's finger. I can promise you, Su said. However, Su said, the premise is that your help can kill the Dragon Emperor like this finger did just now. Hearing that, Mo Qinglong shook his head with a mysterious smile. Human, you still don't understand what the stardust of the North Domain is. In other words, it was something much more important than her help. I don't need to know, Su said calmly. He curled his finger. I'll say it for the last time. Give it to me. Mo Qinglong made excuses. He obviously didn't want to fulfill his promise. Fine, I'll hand it over to you. Mo Qinglong took out the gourd but didn't hand it to Su. Instead, he opened the lid and prepared to release all the bone dragons. I only said I'll give it to you, but I didn't say I'll give it to you along with the gourd. If you want the bone dragons, catch them yourself. Su's eyes turned cold. You, the dignified number 1 person of the North Domain, was acting shamelessly. Young man, this is a lesson for you. You don't have to thank me. Mo Qinglong's words were mischievous. Just as he was about to release the bone dragons, Su suddenly felt something. His body moved 1,000 feet away. The beads that the Dragon Emperor had turned into exploded from the inside out, spurting out a large amount of purplish-black flames. Just like the lonely Emperor, the flames that had appeared from within his body. Once touched by those flames, he would definitely die. The flames brushed past Su's body. Su had dodged a bullet, but Mo Qinglong had never experienced it before. He wasn't so lucky. He was engulfed by the sudden flames. Ah! With a pitiful cry, Mo Qinglong's body was ignited, turning into a burning man. The flames burned him at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. He was about to follow in Su's footsteps, but she was, after all, the number 1 person of the North Domain. Naturally, she had her strengths. At the critical moment, she let out a low grunt, and her whole body exploded. A large mass of bloody light spurted out from within. The blood-red light left the body and condensed into a new body outside the flames. It was a beautiful young woman. Mo Qinglong's original body was a middle-aged woman with an unattractive appearance. At this moment, a young woman came out of her body. The two of them looked very similar. Before Su could understand what was going on, he saw that the young woman's right pinky had been touched by a trace of flames. The flames immediately spread to her whole body, about to burn her into nothingness. At this critical moment, the young woman gritted her teeth and decisively self-destructed her body. A comparatively weaker mass of light burst forth from her body. The mass of light reformed into a small figure. It was a petite young woman of 12 or 13 years old. She had delicate features, and one could faintly see the shadows of the young woman and Mo Qinglong. This time, there were no flames on the young woman's body. Her figure quickly retreated, distancing herself from the flames. She looked like a young woman, but her eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. Her voice was especially muffled, sounding like a middle-aged woman rather than a young woman. Dragon Emperor. Whoosh! The drifting flames suddenly condensed into the ferocious head of the Dragon Emperor. He looked at Mo Qinglong calmly and said in a hoarse voice, "Someone once said that you had cultivated the eternal demon heart. I didn't believe it. I didn't expect it to be true. Before you die, you can release your past body and regain your youth." Impressive. Su was inwardly surprised. Regain youth? The young woman in front of him was Mo Qinglong? How could I be more powerful than you? A mere clone or something else is stronger than my real body. It seems like the rumors are true. Your real body has already surpassed the realm of the Yellow Path Master and entered the ranks of the mysterious path. Su's eyes narrowed. The Dragon Emperor, just now, was just a clone of the real Dragon Emperor. It was no wonder that, even though he was killed, his expression was calm, because his real body was unscathed. The Dragon Emperor's voice was hoarse and calm. You and that human only have 3 years to escape. 3 years later, I will catch up with you. As soon as he finished speaking, the mass of flames exploded on the spot, turning into 2 incomparably gray runes that shot toward the two of them. Su's expression changed slightly. and he immediately used the power of space to escape. But the runes ignored space and hit Su Yu's body directly. Su Yu could vaguely feel a cold, sinister aura penetrating deep into his bones. At that moment, the life and death curse in his body appeared again, devouring the runes of the Dragon Clan. But it was different from the Lonely Emperor's curse. This rune was unusually powerful. Not only did the life and death curse not devour it, but it was also destroyed by the runes. In the end, the life and death curse was completely erased, and the runes were only 1/3 gone. Su Yu's face fell. The runes were harmless, but they could be sensed by the Dragon Emperor at all times. Looking at Mo Qinglong, she wasn't any better. She had returned to her teenage years, and her cultivation had obviously dropped by a level. After resisting for a while, the runes finally entered her body. With a muffled groan, the girl's face was extremely pale. She clenched her teeth and said hatefully, "Dragon Emperor." She looked at Su Yu again, her expression extremely complicated. After pondering for a long time, she threw the gourd to Su Yu. "Now, we are grasshoppers tied to the same rope." Her eyes drifted, obviously pinning her hopes on the insect ancestor's finger in Su Yu's hand. Su Yu saw through her mind, but he wasn't very confident about the finger. After all, the finger wasn't the power of the insect ancestor himself. It was merely a drop of Su Yu's blood. Its true power probably couldn't reach the level of Master Xian. Otherwise, knowing that Su Yu had the finger, the Dragon Emperor wouldn't have dared to hunt him down. He must have known that the finger couldn't harm the Dragon Emperor himself, so he was fearless. "I think it's better for two grasshoppers to run separately than to stay together," Su Yu said with a faint look in his eyes. If the two of them separated, the Dragon Emperor might go crazy and chase after Mo Qinglong first. Then, Su Yu would have the time and opportunity to remove the runes. If they stayed together, it would be exactly what the Dragon Emperor wanted. Mo Qinglong pondered for a while, then nodded quickly. "You're right." Chapter 2386. All of a sudden, Su Yu felt a burning sensation on his back. At the same time, a feeling of flesh and blood merging with each other flashed wildly in his heart. "What are you doing?" Su Yu's body shook as he tried to shake Mo Qinglong away. However, to his astonishment, he discovered that Mo Qingdao's abdomen had become one with him. They were truly connected as one. Mo Qinglong was in his body, and Su Yu was in Mo Qinglong's body. The two of them were connected by flesh and blood. With a thought, a wisp of tyrannical spatial energy transformed into a sharp blade and slashed at the point where the two of them were connected. Yet Mo Qinglong's faint and cold voice resounded in his ears. "I advise you not to do that. Otherwise, the devil Tao within my body will remain within your body and interfere with your breakthrough to the Tao Lord realm for eternity." Kachi. The spatial blade stopped 3 inches above the joint. Su Yu's expression became ice cold. "Is it a demonic technique? This is the innate soul fusion art that I created myself. Originally, I wanted to attach it to the body of a powerful being and use it to survive the great calamity of doomsday." Mo Qinglong had a proud look on his face. "I didn't expect to use it on a puny human like you. What a failure." Su Yu's expression was unsightly. "Then please leave me, a mere human." Unexpectedly, not only was Mo Qinglong unwilling, he even extended his arms and wrapped them around Su Yu's neck, resting his chin on Su Yu's shoulder. At the same time, she wrapped her legs around Su Yu's waist. From afar, it seemed like Su Yu was carrying a little sister on his back. It didn't seem like Su Yu had fused with the woman. "Don't even think of leaving me behind," Mo Qinglong snorted. "My cultivation has regressed greatly, but my lifespan has not. The Dragon Monarch's primary target is definitely me, and then you." Su Yu clenched his teeth. "Buddha said that if I don't go to hell, who will? As a senior, how can you not understand this principle? You're going to die sooner or later anyway. So why drag me down? Why don't you sacrifice yourself and fulfill my wish? Dream on." Mo Qingdao bared his teeth. "I've cultivated for so many years. I can't just die like this." Looking at Su Yu, whose eyes were filled with anger, Mo Qinglong said, "Don't be upset. So what if we separate? The Dragon Emperor will find you sooner or later. If I'm with you, I can even help you destroy that dragon symbol." Only then did Suyu calm down. "Do you have a way to remove that symbol? Otherwise, would I obediently wait for death?" Mo Qinglong asked in reply. That rune should have been mixed with a trace of the profound Wei energy within the Dragon Monarch's body, and it was refined using the Dragon Clan's secret technique. The secret technique is still fine, but the key is that profound Wei energy. Even I am unable to break through it head-on. She couldn't do anything about it, and neither could Suyu. However, I know of a place where I might be able to find something that can offset this trace of profound Tao energy. "What is it?" Mo Qinglong said. "I told you that you would secretly search for it and leave me behind, right? All right, you should at least tell me where it is, right? The Eastern region. Over there? That was the place where the 8-star civilizations recruited. Would it be the thing that stalwart devil spoke of?" However, he had to go to the Eastern region sooner or later. Right now, he was just rushing over in advance. "Let's talk in detail after we leave this place," Mo Qinglong urged. Suyu gave a cold hum. "Then hurry up." Taking out the ancestral dragon's strange feather, Suyu activated it instantly. Before he left, he brought 10 giant dragons with him. In a short span of a breath, he crossed the entire western region and arrived at the border of the eastern region. As soon as he appeared, a towering evil energy surged toward him. Under that evil energy, Suyu felt an inexplicable chill. Beneath his eyes, he could faintly see traces of evil energy burrowing into his body through his pores. "Don't breathe in the evil energy unless you want to die in the eastern region." Mo Qinglong released a black ball of light, enveloping Suyu and himself within it. Only then was the evil energy isolated outside. Only then did Suyu feel his body warm up. "Your body is too weak." Mo Qinglong sighed helplessly, hesitating for a moment before saying, "Seeing that we share the same destiny, I will give you a great benefit. From now on, you can use my cultivation at any time. This is also the benefit of our bodies fusing." Suyu's gloomy mood was finally alleviated. Although Mo Qinglong's cultivation had dropped by a level, she was still a strong man of the great venerable realm. If he could use her cultivation, wouldn't he be able to look down on others in the outer regions? And few could rival him? "Don't be complacent. I cultivate the demonic path, which is incompatible with you. If I use it for too long, you might become demonized and lose your mind. If that happens, I won't be able to save you." Suyu nodded. "How long can I use it each time?" 10 breaths, Mo Qinglong said. "The interval must be more than a year, so that you won't be affected by my demonic path. Otherwise, you will easily become a demon. In other words, within 3 years. Suyu could use his cultivation 3 times. You can use it once now to strengthen your weak body. Of course, if you use the demonic path to strengthen yourself, your body will more or less suffer some demonic side effects in the future." Mo Qinglong had said all he needed to. Whether or not to choose was up to Suyu. Of course, Suyu would not choose the demonic path to temper his body. He had a more ideal way to temper his body. "I will train here, and you will stand guard for me." Suyu's straightforwardness stunned Mo Qinglong. He said, "In the outer regions, when it comes to body tempering, if the demonic path claims to be second, no one would dare claim to be first. Are you sure you don't want to use the demonic path to temper your body?" Suyu shook his head, sat down cross-legged, and took out the black gourd. In the past, he had already familiarized himself with the method of advancing the heavenly dragon body to a higher level. Taking a deep breath, he first used his own blood essence to draw a spell formation of the Dragon Clan in front of him. It was filled with ancient Dragon Clan words. Even the current Dragon Clan might not recognize all of them. After drawing the spell formation, he unsealed Long Taiji's heart and placed it in the center of the spell formation. Then, he placed the black gourd on one side of the spell formation. Then, he opened the lid of the gourd. Roar! Immediately, a dragon's roar could be heard, and a bone dragon rushed out from within. But before it could show off its power, the blood-colored spell formation suddenly activated, shooting out numerous blood-colored symbols. which struck the body of the bone dragon. When the enormous ancient dragon came into contact with the blood-colored symbols, it quickly melted like snow, turning into snow-white crystals. At that moment, Long Taiji's heart suddenly jumped, and he could faintly hear the sound of breathing. The snow-white crystals were absorbed by the heart. Then, a second bone dragon appeared, but it was destroyed by the spell formation, turning into snow-white crystals, which were then absorbed by the heart. The process repeated itself. After 10 days, all of the bone dragons had been digested by the spell formation. Long Taiji's heart became crystal clear, as if it was carved out of ice. It's finally done. Suyu swept away the spell formation, holding up the heart, and crushed it. The heart shattered, revealing a small ice dragon that was swimming freely within. It was stunned at first, but under Suyu's guidance, it pierced through Suyu's chest. At that moment, Suyu's whole body was trembling with crackling sounds. His body expanded at an unbelievable speed, becoming bigger and bigger. From the height of an ordinary human, he turned into a snow-white dragon that was 10,000 feet tall in the blink of an eye. The white dragon's body was covered in thick scales, and its dragon whiskers were extremely long. Its eyes were deep and cold, and wherever its gaze passed, everything turned to ice. Its whole body emitted a majestic aura that made people admire it. In terms of the strength of its physique, it was now comparable to the later stage of the celestial realm. It was only a step away from reaching the level of the great venerable realm. Mo Qinglong stared at Suyu, who had turned into a dragon, muttering, "What secret technique is this?" She had never seen or even heard of a secret technique that could turn a human into a dragon. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have believed it. Whoosh! The snow-white dragon turned into a human. Suyu's appearance was still that of Suyu, but his body was faintly covered with a layer of cold energy. That layer of cold energy was not pure cold energy, but more like a strange gas. Mo Qinglong tried to poke the layer of cold energy with his finger, but unexpectedly, the cold energy repelled his finger. 9-5 Ice Dragon Energy? Mo Qinglong was extremely shocked. The Dragon Emperor had cultivated the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy, while Suyu had cultivated the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Is that so? Suyu was slightly surprised. He tried to shake his body, and a layer of energy invisible to the naked eye spread out with him as the center, forming an energy barrier with a circumference of billions of miles. Although its toughness was not as terrifying as the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy, it was still not to be underestimated. At least, anyone below the later stage of the celestial realm would not be able to break it. Then, under Suyu's control, the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy turned into a dragon claw and slammed down, leaving a clear dragon claw print on the ground. What an unexpected gain, Suyu said to himself. Mo Qinglong's eyes were full of envy. You really got all the benefits. They had all gone to the battlefield of the Dragon Clan. In the end, not only did she not get anything, but she had also given up the bone dragon that she had painstakingly collected to Suyu. As for Suyu, he had directly achieved his current high-level heavenly dragon body, and he had unexpectedly obtained the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Are you referring to the burden on my back? Suyu asked impatiently. What kind of luck was this? He had lost 2 drops of the insect ancestor's blood essence, was hunted down by the Dragon Emperor himself, and now had Mo Qinglong, who had fused with him. Hey, your words hurt my pride. I am a number 1 demonic path in the north. Can't you give me some dignity? Mo Qinglong said, his face full of displeasure. Su did not care whether he was happy or not. He stepped into the east region. As soon as he entered, an even more intense, evil energy assailed him. However, it was all blocked by the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Without Mo Qinglong's demonic energy defensive light shield, the evil energy before him could not harm Suyu in the slightest. Just as the two of them entered, a skeleton suddenly burrowed out of the ground. Its arm was as sharp as a knife, and it slashed at Suyu's legs. Suyu's eyes were calm, and he did not dodge, allowing the knife to slash at his legs. Ding! With a clear and crisp sound, The bone saber broke. At the same time, a boy's cry of pain came from a hidden pile of rocks. A boy emerged from the mud, clutching his arm as he ran, shouting for help. "Teacher, save me! Someone is attacking me!" Swish, swish, swish. Several powerful auras immediately attacked from afar. They were powerful because their cultivation levels had all reached the celestial realm, far exceeding Suyu's. Chapter 2387. In 3 breaths, 5 people arrived. At the front were 3 middle-aged men, and behind them were 2 youths similar to Suyu. The boy covered in mud ran to the back of the 3 teachers, pointing at Suyu and the others. "Teachers, they attacked me," he said pitifully. Suyu looked at the boy indifferently. After wiping the mud off his face, he could see that he was about 10 years old. He really was 10 years old, not just in appearance. Surprisingly, his cultivation was at the early stage of the fish dragon realm. Suyu did not care about cultivation, but wasn't this cultivation a little too abnormal? No matter how powerful a heaven ruler was, he could only become a martial emperor in a dozen years. The boy in front of him was no ordinary creature, was he? Looking at his arm, Suyu seemed to understand. On his back, Mo Qinglong sighed softly. To think that the East Realm really succeeded. I always thought that they were just daydreaming. The 3 teachers were all female, and their cultivation had reached the celestial realm. They sized up Suyu and Mo Qinglong. Just as Suyu thought that they were going to question him, the female teacher in the middle apologized to Suyu. "The child is mischievous, sorry." The child was dissatisfied. "Teacher, he was the one who attacked me. Why are you apologizing for me?" The female teacher sighed and stroked his head, not saying a word. The other 2 female teachers looked at the one-armed skeleton in front of Suyu's feet. How weak could a person with such a physique be to be able to break the skeleton's bones? If he had really attacked the boy, would the boy have had the chance to call for help? So, the boy was obviously lying. "Su Ming, I said before, when hunting demonic beasts, you have to look carefully before attacking. Do you understand?" The female teacher in the middle criticized, but her tone was very gentle, and there was no hint of reprimand. The other 2 women did not look stern, and it was clear that they doted on the boy. So he was very dissatisfied. This was because his physique had just advanced to the high stage of the heavenly dragon body and was exceptionally strong. If it had been his previous physique, he would have been injured even if he did not break his leg. However, the 3 women only gave this child a light reminder. They didn't even give him any proper criticism. It was really outrageous. Suyu secretly shook his head, but he did not intend to pursue the matter further. But even if he didn't pursue the matter, the boy would still take it to heart. "But he was the one who broke my skeletal arm. No matter what, he has to compensate me." Suyu couldn't help but laugh. He hadn't even pursued the matter with the child, yet the child was asking him for compensation. "I'll compensate you with a slap. Do you want it?" Suyu's gaze turned slightly cold. The moment he said that, the 3 teachers were immediately displeased. The woman in the middle pulled a long face and rebuked. "He's just a child. As an adult, don't you think it's embarrassing for you to be so calculative? Children? A child running out to kill people at such a young age. Not only did he fail to kill, he even wanted the victim to pay for the tools used to kill. Most adults wouldn't be as dangerous as a child, right?" Looking at the expressions of the 3 teachers, Suyu finally understood where this child's temperament came from. Like teacher, like child. "Fine, I'm a man of honor, so I won't bother with lowly people like you." Suyu's words had a double meaning. He moved his feet and walked around them, heading deeper into the eastern region. Summer insects cannot speak with ice. There is no point in talking to people who do not share the same views. "Wait a minute," the woman in the middle called out to Suyu. "You heard what Su Ming said just now. After all, you were the one who broke the skeleton's arm. You should compensate him before you leave." "What?" Suyu suspected that he had heard wrongly. When he had first met this woman, she had apologized on behalf of the child. He had thought that this woman was a reasonable person. How could such a ridiculous statement come out of her mouth? "If you want to provoke me, I can play with you. If not, please make way." Suyu's expression turned cold. The female teacher's expression was calm. She said calmly, "One must be reasonable. He's just a child. Even if he attacked, how powerful would it be? As an adult, as an elder, how could you break the skeleton's arm? Seeing her spout nonsense with a straight face, Su Yu only laughed. The power of the child's knife was not small. Otherwise, the skeleton's arm would not have been severed. Please be clear about one thing. I am a victim. Su Yu pointed at himself, trying to convince her with logic. The female teacher looked Su Yu up and down, then asked, "Are you injured?" "No. Since you're not injured, how can you be the victim?" The other two teachers were not as polite as she was. "Teacher Chin, don't waste your breath on him." The teacher on the far right lost her patience. "The teachers of the East Region Divine Palace are reasonable people. Since you are not willing to compensate, we have no choice but to take action." East Region Divine Palace? So you had naturally heard of it. It was the most famous academy in the East Region. The academy was founded by the ruler of the East Region, Serene. However, it was different from ordinary academies. Ordinary academies were chosen by the students of the world. But the East Region Divine Palace was different. It was a compulsory recruitment of the East Region's geniuses. Once they were detected to be extremely talented, they would be sent to the East Region Divine Palace from a young age to further their studies for 100 years. When they graduated 100 years later, there would only be 10 students left. These 10 students would successfully graduate and immediately take charge of important positions in the East Region, becoming influential figures. The rest of the students would become the servants of the other 10. The result was extremely cruel. But because of this, the students who were recruited worked extremely hard to learn and train, afraid that they would become slaves of others when they graduated. In addition, the environment in the East Region was harsh. Under the double psychological and environmental pressure, most of the students would unleash their potential. Because of this, the East Region gave birth to generation after generation of heaven-defying geniuses. Their abilities were all as powerful as demons, especially the number one every year, who had reached a terrifying state. For example, the Lonely Emperor claimed to be the number one person in the South Region and the number one genius in the outer regions. But that was because the geniuses of the East Region Divine Palace never left the East Region Divine Palace. They had no time to wander the outer regions and make a name for themselves. They could not wait to spend all their time training. Therefore, the Lonely Emperor could only be considered the number one genius in the West, South, and North regions. It was hard to say whether he could dominate the East Region. To think that this group of people were from the East Region Divine Palace. No wonder the three middle-aged men called themselves teachers. Seeing that Su Yu did not speak, they thought that Su Yu was intimidated by the reputation of the East Region Divine Palace. We will repeat for the last time. Compensate Su Ming, and this conflict will be written off. Su Yu slowly nodded. All right, tell me, what do you want as compensation? The three teachers looked at the boy with warm smiles. Su Ming, what do you want? Just tell me, don't be afraid. The boy tilted his head, then his eyes lit up. I want the defensive treasure on his body. He could see that it was not Su Yu who had broken off the skeleton's arm, but some kind of defensive item circulating around his body. Hearing this, the three teachers stared at Su Yu. Teacher Chin said, "Did you hear that? Take it out. Our time is precious, and we do not have the time to waste with you." Su Yu was very calm. I do not have any defensive treasure. He really did not. Teacher Chin said, "All right, search him." As she spoke, she took a step forward, her fingers forming a claw as she tried to twist Su Yu's neck. I will capture him. Su Ming search him. However, the moment she approached, a pitch-black palm struck her face like a bolt of lightning. She was unable to react in time. With a slap, a crisp sound reverberated in the surroundings. Teacher Chin spun around on the spot like a spinning top. There was a clear, black palm print on her face. The demonic energy within the palm print did not dissipate with the passage of time. Teacher Chin was stunned by the slap. After a while, she shook her head and regained consciousness. A hoarse voice sounded in her ears. I have tolerated you for a long time. Teacher Chin raised his head and saw Mo Qingdao, who was on Su Yu's back. She was looking at him with an undisguised, disdainful gaze. She had actually been hit by a young girl. Teacher Chin angrily rebuked, "Insolence! Whose child is this? How could she be so ill-mannered?" His words were filled with intense anger. Suyu froze, not having expected Mo Qingdao to attack. An old monster like her, who had lived for countless years, should not be bothered by such things. But he did not know that Mo Qingdao cultivated the demonic path, and her temperament was extremely impetuous. Fighting at every turn was the normal behavior of demonic cultivators. She was still considered normal. Seeing Teacher Chin's raging expression, Suyu's eyes were filled with disdain. "Teacher Chin, she is still a child. You are an adult. Don't you think it is beneath your status as a teacher of the East Region Divine Manor to argue with a child?" Suyu said the same thing to Teacher Chin, but she felt a pain in her waist. Mo Qingdao had pinched the flesh on her waist. She angrily said, "Who are you calling a child?" She was an old monster who had not lived for many years. She only looked like a child now. Nonsense. Can a child slap an adult? Teacher Chin realized that the slap mark on her face could not be wiped off, and her anger grew. Suyu looked at her seriously. "You are not injured. Is it worth making such a fuss?" This was what Teacher Chin had said before. In the same situation, she would stand on the moral high ground and speak eloquently. When it came to herself, she was filled with anger. This kind of person did not have a problem with her intelligence. She was just too evil. She was clearly pretending to be ignorant. Cut the crap. Hand over the item. Teacher Chin could not be bothered to continue pretending. She released the aura of a celestial realm cultivator and angrily scolded. The other two teachers did the same, revealing their evil natures. "Teacher Chin, it is rare for us to meet an outsider. Let's kill her first," the other two teachers said. Teacher Chin nodded, lightly patting her face. My good guy face is about to become stiff from acting. She bared her teeth, a hint of evilness appearing between her brows. At this point, their true colors had been completely exposed. What they did not expect was that Suyu did not panic. Instead, he clapped his hands. "Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? In my life, there is one type of person I am most afraid of, and I am least afraid of." Chapter 2388. All his life, he had always done things with a clear conscience. If it had been someone else who was being reasonable or just talking, Suyu would not have been able to do anything. Those who harbored evil intentions and liked to bully the weak were easy for Suyu to deal with. He could just use force. Oh, outsiders, it is not wise to be arrogant in the East region. If I were you, I would immediately tuck my tail between my legs and admit defeat, Teacher Chin said coldly. The Eastern domain was the most mysterious domain. The creatures that lived there were also extremely mysterious, causing people to feel apprehensive. Suyu's expression was calm. No matter how mysterious the East region is, it is not to the extent that a few insects would make people hesitate. Haha, what arrogance! Teacher Chin laughed. Teachers, why don't the three of us show our three students the elegance of the East region divine manners teachers? That's exactly what I was thinking. The three women looked at each other and chose to attack at the same time. Not bad, Suyu said calmly. The cultivation level that Suyu displayed was only that of a half-path master. If it had been an ordinary strong martial artist, they would probably have looked down on him. But the three in front of him were not the least bit careless, choosing to attack at the same time. It was obvious how harsh the East region's environment was, and they were used to being cautious. Unfortunately, they had been too careless and provoked someone they should not have provoked. 9-5 Ice Dragon Energy. Suyu stood where he was, not even moving an inch. He quietly watched the three early-stage Celestial Realm teachers attack him together. When they unleashed their Path Master's power, Suyu casually shook off the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy that surrounded him. He then turned it into an invisible wall of air and pushed it forward. Slap, slap, slap. In an instant, the three teachers were like flies that had crashed into a wall, bouncing off one after another. Wah! Even with their strong bodies, crashing into the energy wall did not feel good, and they all spat out mouthfuls of blood. What is that? Teacher Chin's mouth was full of blood, and he looked back in shock at the formless energy wall that was drenched in blood. The other two teachers were also shocked, completely unsure of the situation. The three students at the back, including the boy, all sucked in a breath of cold air. The three teachers had attacked with all their might, but they had been injured by the other party? An expert. He was definitely an expert. Mr. Chen's expression changed rapidly, and he slammed his hands on the ground. All of a sudden, a cloud of dust soared into the sky, and dozens of demonic beasts, which were made of soil that was filled with evil energy, roared as they crawled out of the cracks in the ground, then attacked Suyu. She, the other two teachers, and the three students quickly fled. His decisiveness made Suyu sigh once again. The people of the East region were obviously different from the people of the other three regions. You want to escape? Suyu's expression was calm. Suyu had tolerated it time and time again, and they had pressured him again and again. Hence, they could not blame Suyu for being merciless. His eyes flashed, and a 9-5 ice dragon chi spread out, enveloping the entire area. At the same time, everything in the area was instantly frozen into ice. This was the true power of a 9-5 ice dragon chi. Other than the three teachers, everything else, including the three students, was turned into ice sculptures. Even so, the three teachers were covered in ice, and their movements became extremely slow. Could this be the Dragon Clan's 9-5 dragon chi? The expressions of the three teachers changed drastically as fear appeared on their faces. This is something that only a dragon of the Dragon Clan can comprehend. They had obviously misunderstood that Suyu was a dragon of the great venerable realm. Don't you think it's too late to realize it now? Suyu said coldly, not bothering to explain himself. Thump! Teacher Chen suddenly stopped running. Instead, he turned around and knelt on the ground. He said decisively, I was blind. Please have mercy on me and spare my lowly life. Please forgive me, Senior. Please have mercy, Senior. The other two teachers also knelt down and begged for mercy. It was impossible to find a fourth person to admit defeat so quickly. Suyu was deep in thought, thinking about how to deal with them. If he let them go, he was afraid that they would cause trouble and affect his ability to erase the Dragon Clan's runes. If he killed them, they would beg for mercy so quickly. If you want to live, it's easy. Mo Wudao, who was on Suyu's back, had a sinister smile on his face as he said, as long as you swallow the 9-death demon heart that I personally made, I can spare your lives. Suyu was taken aback. What is the 9-death demon heart? What? 9-death demon heart? You? Could you be the demon master of the North region? Mo Wudao? Teacher Chen's face turned pale as he lifted his head to look at the young Mo Wudao. The other two teachers were also shocked. Mo Wudao smiled calmly. It seems like there is no need for me to introduce myself. Tell me, do you want to die? Or do you want to accept? I accept. Unexpectedly, the three teachers did not hesitate at all. Instead, they agreed happily. What surprised Suyu was that the three teachers still had expressions of excitement and anticipation. Fine. Since you are so tactful, take it. Mo Wudao flipped his palm, and 3 beating hearts appeared on his palm. On each heart, there were 9 orifices. What a rich life force. Suyu had mastered the law of life, so he could naturally sense the abnormality of the hearts. Mo Wudao moved closer to Suyu's ear and blew a breath of air with a faint smile. Why? Do you want it? I can give you an even bigger one. Suyu rejected him decisively. You can keep it for yourself. Mo Wudao laughed and threw the 3 hearts over. The 3 teachers swallowed them happily, as if they had received a great fortune. Thump! A dull and powerful heartbeat sounded from within the bodies of the 3 teachers. Moreover, there was a faint trace of demonic energy hidden in their blood vessels. Thank you, Demon Master, for your reward, the 3 teachers said joyfully. So he was slightly confused. Was a 9-death demon heart really something good? Lowly human, it is too late for you to regret it, Mo Wudao said proudly. This is the 9-death demon heart that I personally refined. Once the owner of the 9-death demon heart is in danger, Even if there's only a drop of blood left, it could be reborn on the spot. It could be used a total of 9 times. In other words, it has 9 lives. Many people have begged me to give them to them, but I have never cared for them. But you actually despise it. Mo Wudao snorted. It was no wonder that the 3 teachers were so excited. Anyone who had received such a great ability would be excited, wouldn't they? Suyu shook his head, disapproving. He had never thought that there were only benefits and no disadvantages in this world. To obtain the 9-death demon heart, one had to pay a corresponding price. Of course, my heart is not without its disadvantages. Once I obtain it, their lives will be linked to mine. Mo Wudao was slightly guilty. If anything happens to me, they will die immediately. As expected, Suyu's face darkened. When you say accident, it also includes your bad mood, right? This so-called connection would be a great hidden danger that could decide the life and death of others with a single thought. Cough, cough, that is not the point. Forget it, forget it. Mo Wudao coughed dryly. Suyu looked at the 3 teachers sympathetically. However, they must have known about the disadvantages of a 9-death demon heart in advance, and were still willing to accept it. Suddenly, Suyu's heart shook. He did not think that Mo Wudao was a merciful person, so why did he control these 3 people instead of killing them? The 9-death demon heart was not something that could be easily refined, was it? Why waste it on 3 useless people? Were you planning? Suyu asked. Mo Wudao poked Suyu's chest in exasperation. We are facing imminent disaster. Why do you think I'm doing this? Blocking her hand, Suyu's heart shook. The thing that can neutralize the power of the mysterious path is in the East region divine manner. You could say so, Mo Wudao answered indifferently. Speak clearly. Suyu's brows furrowed. He was not one to speak without finishing his sentence. Mo Wudao stammered. To be precise, it is with Xie Sanren. Who? Xie Sanren, the number 1 person in the East region. This person was known as the number 1 evil in the Outer Realm. He was extremely secretive and unpredictable. No one was willing to deal with him, let alone take something that he carried with him. Then you must have thought of a way? Suyu asked. Mo Wudao scratched his head and said sheepishly, sneaking into the East region divine manner is the only plan I can think of at the moment. As for how to get that thing, let me think. Suyu was so angry that he rolled his eyes. After all this time, that thing was just a castle in the air, and she had no way of getting it. No wonder she had been stammering before, only saying that it was in the East region. She had been stammering about what it was and where it was. Others have boarded a pirate ship, but I have boarded a sinking ship. Suyu's face had completely darkened. To take something from a number 1 evil in the East region was as difficult as ascending to heaven. But now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. Looking at the 3 teachers, it seemed like he could only look for a breakthrough from them. But the 3 teachers had to get rid of the 3 students. Looking at the 3 ice sculptures, Suyu thought about how to deal with them. Just kill them. It's such a simple matter. Mo Wudao had a relaxed expression, not feeling the slightest bit guilty. Suyu was annoyed. If you have no other way, then shut up. Fine, I'll shut up. Mo Wudao snorted and turned her head away. Suyu stood where he was, his mind spinning, one plan after another appearing in his mind. But he had too little information at the moment, and he did not know which plan was more reliable. But Suyu had already decided on how to deal with the 3 people in front of him. With a wave of his hand, the 9-5 ice dragon dispersed, and all the living beings within its range gradually recovered. Suyu looked at the 3 teachers and said seriously, "From today onwards, the 2 of us are your new students. When we return to the East Region Institute of Theology, do not reveal our whereabouts. Do you understand?" The 3 teachers were stunned, looking at Mo Wudao, who was on Suyu's back, subtly acknowledging her as their leader. "Why are you looking at her?" Suyu shouted. "She's just a parasite on my body. She has to listen to me for everything. Since you are her people, you are also my people." Mo Qingdao's eyes widened, and he bit Suyu's shoulder. "Fine, this worm will bite you now." Unfortunately, Suyu's physique was so strong that she almost lost her teeth. In her anger, she could only say to the three teachers, "Listen to his orders in the future." Yes. Only then did the three teachers submit to Suyu. At that moment, the three students gradually melted from the ice, shivering as they looked around. When their gazes landed on Suyu, their expressions changed. Chapter 2389. They had not personally witnessed Suyu's 9-5 ice dragon energy, nor did they know Mo Qinglong's identity. But Suyu's terrifying wall of energy still made them tremble in fear. Without hesitation, they immediately split into three groups and escaped. "Why are you running? Don't make a fuss." But at this moment, Teacher Qin suddenly stopped them. The three students froze, turning to look at Teacher Qin in confusion. If it had not escaped now, when would they? "While you were sealed in ice," Teacher Qin said proudly, "they were infatuated with red names. They are now our people." When the three students heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Infatuated with red names was a mysterious hidden weapon personally crafted by the Sanren. Once hit, they would wholeheartedly pledge their loyalty to the East Region Divine Palace. Many unruly and ruthless people in the East Region were fortunate enough to experience the feeling of being infatuated with red names, becoming the guardian slaves of the East Region Divine Palace. Congratulations, Teacher Qin. You have obtained an outstanding servant. The three students ran back happily, not suspecting that their teacher had betrayed them. The boy licked his lips, his eyes filled with malice. "Teacher, leave this detestable servant to me. Humph, he dares to freeze me? I'll burn him to death." But Teacher Qin did not let him do as he usually did. He said sternly, "No." "Why?" The boy stomped his feet, extremely dissatisfied. The other two teachers said, "Su Ming, you are not young anymore. You should understand the relationship between us and the other teachers of the East Region Divine Palace." Yes, there are 81 teachers in the East Region Divine Palace. Every three teachers form a group and train their own students. The students that the three of us train are not as outstanding as the other groups. If this continues, not only will you become someone else's servant when you graduate, but the three of us will also have to bear the CS Sanren's 10,000 evil bone corrosion for 10 years. At the mention of the 10,000 evil bone corrosion, the three teachers could not help but shiver. That was the punishment that the CS Sanren gave to the teachers who failed. If a teacher didn't teach his students well, he would suffer the punishment of 10,000 evil corroding his bones. That feeling was comparable to entering the 9 hells or the Yellow Springs. The pain was unforgettable and unforgettable. Su Ming said in surprise, "Teacher Qin, you want to take these two as your students?" Mr. Qin nodded seriously. "Yes. Do you have any objections?" Su Ming glared at Suyu angrily. "I am not willing. If there is him, then there will be no me." "Fine. I will fulfill your wish." Teacher Qin said indifferently, "If you insist on doing this, then you can choose another teacher." Su Ming was stupefied. He had never thought that a student who was so well received and loved by the teacher would be treated so coldly overnight. He could not compare to an outsider like Suyu. His mind was in turmoil, and he had mixed feelings. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'm just saying it out of anger. How could it be that easy to change teachers?" Under Teacher Qin, he could receive the best care, but under the other teachers, it was different. "It won't happen again." He then looked at Suyu and said slowly, "Suyu, from today onwards, you are my student. Now follow me to the campsite." "Yes, Teacher Qin," Suyu said with a respectful expression. Of course, all of this had been secretly instructed by Suyu. It was necessary to sneak into the Eastern Region Divine Abode. As for her, Mr. Qin pretended to ask. Suyu said, "She's my younger sister. Her name is Little Demon Su." As he spoke, his waist was violently twisted again. Teacher Qin's original name was Qin Hui, and the other two teachers were Yushan and Chunyin. Their group's training had been interrupted prematurely due to an accident, and they had returned to a civilization filled with evil energy. There were many teachers and students in that civilization. They had all come to a great hall in the civilization and taken out the demonic beasts they had hunted. It turned out that this was a routine training for the Eastern Region Divine Abode every year. Different groups of teachers would lead their students to the borders of the Eastern region to hunt demonic beasts. Qin Hui led Su Yu and the others into the Great Hall. Inside the Great Hall, there were full-time members of the Eastern Region Divine Abode in charge of recording the demonic beasts hunted by each group. Teacher Qin, where are the demonic beasts your students hunted? The old man looked at Su Yu and Mo Qinglong, slightly surprised. Qin Hui waved her hand, and the three students, including the child, each took out the demonic beasts they had hunted. The old man sized them up, then picked up a pen to record. 2 level 7 demonic beasts, 8 level 6 demonic beasts, and 30 level 5 demonic beasts. A total of 90 points. Temporary ranking 27th. There were a total of 27 groups in the Eastern Region Divine Abode. Ranking 27th was naturally the last place. Qin Hui's expression did not look good. There were still about 10 days before the training officially ended. The other groups would continue hunting, and the number of demonic beasts they would obtain would increase. Teacher Qin, I need to remind you that the group that ranks last in this training will be punished by becoming a slave for 7 days. The teacher will be publicly whipped 30,000 times. Are you prepared? The old man asked. Qin Hui nodded, her face slightly pale. After the students became slaves, anyone in the Eastern Region Divine Abode could order them around, and they could not resist. Otherwise, they would be punished even more severely. None of the people in the Eastern Region Divine Abode were kind. They would use this opportunity to humiliate the slaves, causing them to have a mental breakdown and lose the right to compete with them. The teacher's situation was not much better. After 30,000 lashes, the injuries were minor. What was important was that the process was extremely humiliating. Those who were being punished would be stripped of all their clothes and executed in public. The 3 of them were female teachers. If they were to endure such punishment, they would not have the face to raise their heads in the Eastern Region Divine Abode. I'm here to apply for 2 student cards. Qin Hui pointed at Su Yu and Mo Wudao. These are Su Yu and Little Demon Su. They are the 2 new students that I took in during the hunt. The old man had a look of realization. Teachers have the right to take in new students. However, if there are any problems with the students, the teachers are the first to be held responsible. This was to prevent teachers from taking in students with unknown identities, which could lead to all sorts of consequences. I understand. Qin Hui nodded. Without another word, the old man took out 2 very strange pieces of paper and blew on them. The words Su Yu and Little Demon Su appeared on each of them. Then the old man flicked his wrist, and the 2 pieces of paper instantly sank into the heads of the 2 students. Their names flickered between their brows. From today onwards, the 2 of you are students of the Eastern Region Divine Abode. Remember to work hard and do not slack off. Su Yu and Mo Wudao nodded. We understand. Go on, there's still 10 days left. I hope you can make it. The old man waved his hand, allowing them to continue their training. After they left, a purple-faced, middle-aged man walked in from outside the hall. He said with a smile, Elder Mo, how was it? Did any of the teams have better results than our Qilin team? 27 teams, each with a different code name. Among them, one of the most famous teams was the Qilin team. Not only were the teachers powerful and experienced, but the students they took in were also of the highest quality. Over the years, the Qilin team had always been in the top 3. This time, he took the lead, and with his current score of 200 points, he was firmly in first place. Elder Hiroshi shook his old head, and a rare smile appeared on his indifferent face. Your Qilin group is very strong, and your luck is very good this time. You bumped into a whole nest of level 6 demonic beasts, so you can refresh your first place ranking. Haha, that's good, the purple-faced middle-aged man said. However, the lowest score has been refreshed. It's the Azure Dragon team, Elder Mo said enthusiastically, completely different from the attitude he had with Qin Hui and the others. The purple-faced, middle-aged man shrugged. As expected, 3 useless women and 3 useless students. Every year, we've always been in the bottom 5. It's normal for us to be in last place this year. Elder Mo nodded. There's no suspense about the first and last place. On the other side, returning to the void, Qin Hui said, You all heard what was said just now. It's an honor for our Azure Dragon team to be in last place. Su Ming clenched his fists tightly. Damn it, we were the first to discover the lair of the level 6 demonic beasts, but the Qilin team got there first. Qin Hui shook her head. You're not as skilled as others. If you do not wish to become the slaves of the other students, and do not wish to be tortured by them, you must focus now and work hard to find the demonic beasts. The 3 students' hearts tightened. Su Ming looked at the other 2 students. Brother Zheng, Brother Qing, let's go. He cast a sidelong glance at Su Yu, intending to encourage them. Qin Hui received Su Yu's secret message. You, Shan, Qin Yun, you follow them. I'll follow Su Yu and Little Demon Su. According to the rules, teachers had to secretly follow and protect the students while they were training. After waiting for Su Ming and the others to leave, Qin Hui lowered her head and smiled bitterly. We've embarrassed ourselves in front of the 2 masters. Our Azure Dragon team is incompetent. Perhaps we'll make the 2 masters suffer. Mo Qinglong said indifferently. Isn't there still 10 days? With her abilities, wouldn't it be easy for her to hunt the demonic beasts? Master, you don't know. Qin Hui smiled bitterly. This time, we've reached the final stage. Most of the demonic beasts have already been killed. Whether or not we'll encounter a high-level demonic beast would depend on luck. If Mo Qinglong had joined earlier, they would not have been able to escape from many of the high-level demonic beasts they encountered, especially the lair of the level 6 demonic beasts. The Qilin team would not have gotten there first. It was too late now. Mo Qinglong's brows twitched. Could it be that the number 1 demonic cultivator of the North region, will have to come to the East region to be the slave of those little bastards? So he was expressionless. He activated Xiao Dai's shared perspective. He had seen the demonic beasts just now. Demonic beasts of different levels represented different colors in Xiao Dai's perspective. At this moment, with a glance, everything in the world appeared in his eyes in different colors. Among them, there were 2 colors that were exactly the same as the color of the level 7 demonic beasts. The northeast corner is 1 billion miles away. The southeast corner is 300 million miles away, Su Yu said calmly. He then flew to the northeast corner. Su Yu stopped in the sky above a valley that had no cover at all. Chapter 2390. Just as he was thinking, Mo Qingdao, who was on Su Yu's back, suddenly exclaimed, There really is one. He blew a breath into the valley, and suddenly a gust of wind blew in the valley. Countless dust and sand were swept up into the air. Some of the seemingly ordinary dust and sand came to life, desperately gathering together to form a giant python with an evil aura. It struggled and tried to escape in fear, but it could not escape the breath. It fell in front of Su Yu. Seeing this, Teacher Qin exclaimed, This is an extremely rare level 7 demonic beast, the yellow dust python. Oh my God! No wonder no one found it. This python was extremely special. Once it chose to hide, it could split its body into countless dust particles. Unless there was a powerful person, it would be difficult to find it. It was not surprising that Mo Qingdao could see through the yellow dust python. What was surprising was how Su Yu could determine that the yellow dust python was hiding from hundreds of millions of miles away. It was incredible. Su Yu grabbed the yellow dust python and put it into his space storage device. His eyes flashed as he looked at the southeast corner. In the southeast corner was a ruined cave, and he could faintly smell the remnants of a large number of demonic beasts. Seeing this, Teacher Qin sighed. This was the lair of the level 6 demonic beasts that they had discovered, but the Qilin civilization had gotten there first. However, she felt that Su Yu's trip had been in vain. Not only had the Qilin team searched this place thoroughly, but the Azure Dragon team had also come to search. The other teams had also come to try their luck after learning that this was the lair. But without exception, none of them had found anything. This lair had already been turned upside down. How could they possibly find new demonic beasts? However, when Suyu arrived, he did not say a word, but punched the lair below him. With a rumble, the entire cave shook. Then, to Qin Hui's surprise, the cave suddenly closed, and at the same time, it rapidly burrowed into the ground. What? The lair itself is an evil beast? Qin Hui was shocked. After a few chases, the level 7 demonic beast was still no match for Suyu's powerful physique, and it was knocked unconscious with a punch. Qin Hui stared at Suyu in disbelief. If the former could be considered a coincidence, then how could the latter, when Suyu was 300 million miles away and had locked onto another level 7 demonic beast? Mo Qinglong clicked his tongue in wonder. My gosh, can you do divination? Even she could not sense the demonic beast, but Suyu could easily recognize it. Upon hearing that, Suyu did not speak. He looked around and said calmly, 800 million miles north, 700 million miles northwest, 400 million miles southwest in the following 5 days. Suyu went to 7 or 8 regions, and in each region, he accurately found a lone demonic beast. Qin Hui was dumbfounded by his precision. What surprised her even more was that every single one of them was at least a level 6 demonic beast. The 3 of them stood in front of a messy ancient tree. So you had just captured another level 7 demonic beast here. Including the ones you've killed before, we already have 270 points. Qin Hui's face glowed with joy. The boulder that had been pressing on her chest for a long time was suddenly lifted. With this kind of result, she can at least be ranked in the top 15. Not only would they be able to break away from the bottom 5, but they would also be able to fight their way into the top 15. The Azure Dragon team's training this time around would definitely be an eye-opener. Only 15, so he was a little dissatisfied. Looks like we have to continue. He swept his gaze in a certain direction, and his eyes lit up. Oh, an undiscovered lair of level 6 demonic beasts? I've finally hit the jackpot. In his field of vision, there were no less than 100 level 6 demonic beasts. In terms of points, there should be about 500 points. Combined with what he had gained previously, he had close to 800 points. There was no doubt that he would be ranked first in this training. Whoosh! Suyu immediately flew over. Just as he appeared, he discovered that there was a later stage fish dragon student near the lair. His face was full of joy as he hid nearby. He was crushing a jade talisman, as if he was notifying someone. Qin Hui saw this, her heart filled with hatred. Unfortunately, that student was from the Qilin team. She was about to send a message to Suyu, but Suyu ignored her and used the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy to freeze the student into an ice sculpture. He then used the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy to surround the entire lair of the demonic beasts. After that, he and Mo Qinglong began harvesting the demonic beasts without restraint. After a cup of tea's time, 100 level 6 demonic beasts were all in the bag. There are still a few level 5 demonic beasts. Mo Qinglong's eyes were sharp, and he discovered that there were still a few small demonic beasts hiding. He was about to capture them when Suyu lazily turned around. That's enough. Hearing this, Qin Hui blushed with shame. Su Ming's 3 students had fought to the death with the other teams for a single level 5 demonic beast. In the end, Suyu did not even look at him. This was the difference between them. Suyu and the others left. As they left, they kept the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. The student who had turned into an ice sculpture slowly melted. He shuddered, then looked at the empty lair in front of him and flew into a rage. Who is it? Who is it? Before long, a group of 3 people quickly approached. Their cultivation levels were all at the later stage of the fish dragon realm. Zhao Zhili, what's going on? An extremely thin youth looked at the slowly melting cold air. Zhao Zhili was furious, pointing to the lair. We've been intercepted. Such a thing happened? The thin youth's eyes were filled with disbelief. That was 100 level 6 demonic beasts. Even if the 4 of us attacked with all our might, it would be impossible to capture all of them. Moreover, it only took a cup of tea's time for us to rush over. How could a student do it? The 3 students looked at Zhao Zhili suspiciously. I swear to the heavens that everything I've said to you is true. Zhao Zhili swore. The three students creased their brows. That's strange. Forget it. It was definitely not done by a student. Maybe it was taken away by a senior who was passing by. It won't affect our results, the thin youth said after some thought. The other students nodded. There were still 5 days until the final moment. Their Qilin group was far ahead with a score of 400 points. If nothing unexpected happened, it was impossible for anyone to overtake their first-place result. On the other side, Imo Qinglong asked Suyu, "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to rest. I've caught enough," Suyu calmly said. His total score of 800 was unshakable. Catching more demonic beasts would be a waste of energy and time. It would be better to return to the civilization and inquire about the East Region Divine Manor so that he could formulate a plan. Wait, I think I saw Su Ming and the others hunting level 5 demonic beasts. Mo Qinglong's senses were powerful, so he immediately discovered them. Let's go and snatch those level 5 demonic beasts. So he was not interested. Boring. Helpless. Mo Qinglong could only snort. Those 3 brats have it easy. Upon returning to the civilization, Qin Hui and the other 2 students immediately attracted a lot of attention. The Azure Dragon group is anxious and came back to inquire about the latest ranking, right? Haha, isn't that right? Look, they don't even have the mood to capture demonic beasts. Unfortunately, they will be very disappointed because the second from the bottom has already pulled away from them by more than 10 points. However, what shocked them was that Qin Hui did not go to the Great Hall to check the ranking. Instead, she brought Su Yu and Su Little Demon to stay in the civilization's luxurious villa, enjoying a leisurely rest. When the news reached the ears of Elder Mo in the Great Hall, the latter sighed in disappointment. Did the Azure Dragon group know that they have no hope, so they gave up? What an unambitious thing. The purple-faced middle-aged man, who was strolling in the civilization, could not help but laugh when he heard the news. He did not even have a word to say. He did not even have the intention to see such a useless group as a competitor. In the villa, a group of East Region Divine Manor members dressed in black stood outside the villa with stern expressions. "Teacher Qin, I have come to pay a visit." Qin Hui was in the courtyard, obediently telling Su Yu all the information she knew about the East Region Divine Manor. Suddenly hearing a familiar voice, she was slightly surprised. "Teacher Qin from the White Tiger Group? That's strange," Qin Hui said to herself. The White Tiger Group is ranked in the top 3 all year round, comparable to the Qilin Group. Usually, they would not even look at the Azure Dragon Group. Now, they have come to pay a visit. That's strange. So you waved his sleeves. Let's go meet them first. Yes. Qin Hui came to the front yard and politely invited the teacher Qin into the guest hall. She was very polite. "Teacher Qin, what brings you here?" Qin Hui's face was full of smiles. She was very respectful to the teacher Qin. The pill master stroked his white beard and sat down on the main seat. His eyelids drooped slightly as he looked down at Qin Hui. "I do have something I need your Azure Dragon organization to do," he said coolly. His tone made Qin Hui quite uncomfortable. Why did it sound like the Azure Dragon Group should listen to the White Tiger Group? "Please speak." Qin Hui's smile faded. The teacher Qin tapped his fingers on the table and went straight to the point. "I'm a little interested in your groups, Su Ming. Why don't you let him join my group so that he won't be implicated by your group?" "What?" Qin Hui was annoyed. Between groups, there were often instructors who snatched students from other groups, but it was usually done in secret. Everyone had a tacit understanding. But the teacher Qin was asking Qin Hui for Su Ming. Furthermore, he was using a commanding tone. This was a slap to Qin Hui's face and embarrassing her. "Teacher Qin, don't you think you are going overboard by deliberately humiliating us like this?" Qin Hui's expression was cold. The teacher Qin said calmly, "Your Azure Dragon group has given up on yourself. Is there any respect left? More seriously, hand Su Ming over to the White Tiger Group. When you are punished, the White Tiger Group can intimidate the other groups and let you suffer less." Hearing this, Qin Hui froze for a moment, then understood. So that's why. She found it funny. Giving up on themselves? Haha, They had already obtained enough results and did not want to obtain any more. But of course, she would not say it out loud. She let out a faint smile. The Azure Dragon group does not need your White Tiger group to worry about it. Scram back to where you came from. The Pill Master, who had been wearing a calm expression, suddenly froze. He looked at Qin Hui, who had a slightly arrogant attitude, with a somewhat unfamiliar expression. Chapter 2391. Qin Hui, it looks like you still do not understand your situation, Master Dan coldly reprimanded. He did not understand what was wrong with Qin Hui. He was already destined to be last, yet he still dared to be so arrogant and berate him. Had he not only given up on the training, but had also given up on himself, and even given up on graduating? Qin Hui laughed coldly. I understand my situation very well. There's no need for you to worry about me. I don't want to repeat myself a second time. At this point, the Pill Master had nothing else to say. His expression turned gloomy. Fine. Then my White Tiger team will wait to see the fate of your Azure Dragon team. When that time comes, don't blame my White Tiger team for being naughty and bullying your Azure Dragon team's servants. Just you wait. Humph. With a grunt, Master Dan flicked his sleeves and left. Qin Hui watched him leave with a face full of anger. She had never felt so happy before. Ha ha. It feels good to chase away a White Tiger team teacher. In the past, their bottom feeder Azure Dragon team could only bow and scrape in front of the White Tiger team. How would they dare to chase them away like now? For the first time, Qin Hui truly felt that meeting Su Yu and Mo Qinglong was not entirely a bad thing. It was not only the White Tiger team that had the same thoughts. Representatives from other teams came to find Qin Hui for a discussion. Some were more tactful, while others were like the White Tiger team, blatantly threatening her. They only had one goal, to get Su Ming. Of course, the answer they received was completely unexpected. Some left in disappointment, while others were filled with shame and anger. This situation continued until 5 days later. Su Ming and the other 2 students returned to the camp on time, led by Chun Yun and Yushan. After 10 days of hard work, they had successfully captured 2 level 5 demonic beasts and even accidentally captured a level 6 demonic beast, increasing their team's score by 12 points. Our games are not bad. If Su Yu and Little Demon Su also manage to hunt demonic beasts, we might have a chance to get rid of last place. Yushan was filled with hope. Yin could not help but feel nervous. After returning to the camp, she immediately sent a message to Qin Hui to confirm her location. A short while later, the 2 parties met at the villa after 10 days. Qin Hui took the initiative to welcome them and said with a smile, "Thank you for your hard work, teachers, and the 3 students. It's only right for us to work a little harder." Su Ming laughed and said, "Teacher Qin has also worked hard." Qin Hui said calmly, "I'm actually fine. It wasn't hard." She was telling the truth. Along the way, Su Yu and Su Little Demon did not need her protection at all. They just followed them everywhere they went to catch demonic beasts. In the end, he even returned to the villa 5 days earlier to rest. When had he ever been tired? Yushan and Chunyun only thought that Qin Hui was being modest. Chunyun sighed and said, "Teacher Qin must have worked hard to come back just now, right? I don't know if those 2 have hunted demonic beasts." Qin Hui was speechless. She had already said that she had not worked hard. "To be honest, I came back 5 days ago," Qin Hui said. Yushan and Chunyun were stunned when they heard that. They pursed their lips tightly and stared at Qin Hui with complicated gazes. There was anger, blame, and deep resentment. They led the students to desperately capture demonic beasts outside. What about Qin Hui? She didn't even inform them and directly gave up on the experiential learning and returned to the villa to recuperate. A great sense of disappointment and betrayal surged into their hearts. But the feelings of many years together made them restrain themselves and not act up. But Su Ming and the other 3 students were not so shrewd. Especially Su Ming, who immediately clenched his fists in anger and widened his eyes. "What did you say? Came back 5 days earlier? Then what was the point of them risking their lives to capture demonic beasts? Moreover, they had returned early, which clearly meant that they had given up on the experiential learning. There was no way they could not catch any demonic beasts, right? They had originally had hope of turning the tables, but now there was no hope. Su Ming's anger could be imagined. Teacher Qin, did Su Yu and Su Little Demon decide to give up? A student asked with a gloomy expression. The teacher was only responsible for the safety of the students. Whether or not to give up the experiential learning was up to the students, not the teacher. Qin Hui nodded. Yes, but they have already. Unfortunately, before she could finish her words, Su Ming shouted loudly. I knew it was those two fellows. With a face full of anger, he roared at the villa. You two with the surname Su, get out here. Ever since they had met the two of them, nothing good had happened. Now, they had dragged them down to the last place. There was no reply for a long time. Su Ming was furious, feeling as though his chest was about to explode. If they don't come out, I will level the villa. At this time, Su Yu was in a secret room analyzing the various information of the Eastern region divine manor. How could he have the time to bother with Su Ming? Not receiving a response for a long time, Su Ming reverted to his old habits. With a roar, he used his powerful cultivation level to forcefully destroy the villa. A powerful wave swept out in all directions with him as the center. Everywhere it passed, the buildings were all destroyed. Qin Hui and the other teachers wanted to stop him, but it was too late. They could only curse in their hearts. Crash! The secret room Su Yu was in was not spared. Although there were restrictions, and it did not collapse, it was still swept by the huge tremors, waking him from his concentration. His eyes turned cold. You're asking for death. Boom! His feet stomped on the ground, and he left the secret room with the space domain, appearing behind Su Ming. Without even looking at him, he slapped the back of his head. Su Ming immediately felt it, and a golden ring appeared above his head as a defense. Slap! However, Su Yu's palm strike was extremely powerful. How could a normal defense defend against it? The ring trembled lightly, then shattered. The back of Su Ming's head took the full brunt of the slap, and he stumbled forward, tumbling a few times before falling headfirst into the ruins, his face covered in dirt. Su Yu retracted his palm, looking at the dissipating ring. He was astonished. What a strange ring. If he had not sensed wrongly, he had faintly felt that the Dragon Emperor's mysterious power in his body had fluctuated. You dare hit me? Su Ming crawled up angrily, his eyes wide like a frog's, glaring at Su Yu without blinking. Su Yu regained his senses, calmly looking at him. Hitting you is light. That slap contained a shred of murderous intent. If not for the protection of the ring, Su Ming would have been killed by that slap. Su Ming came to Qin Hui's side, panting with rage. Teacher Qin, you must seek justice for me. Qin Hui was speechless. Her life was in Su Yu's hands. How could she seek justice for him? Su Ming, Su Yu is right. You have gone too far. Qin Hui lectured him with a serious expression. After you return to the East region divine manor, go into seclusion and reflect. Su Ming was stunned. Teacher Qin, who had protected him in all aspects, was now protecting Su Yu. He was the real victim. Why did she punish him, but not mention a word about Su Yu? Yu Shan and Chen Yun sighed in their hearts. The latter broke the tense atmosphere, saying, Stop arguing. Time is almost up. Hurry to the great hall and hand over the demonic beast. The two of them sighed. It was no longer important whether they handed it over or not. They were destined to be last place. Su Ming cried, feeling wronged. He silently followed them to the Great Hall. In the Great Hall, the other teams had all arrived. This included the White Tiger team and the Qilin team. The entry of the Azure Dragon team caused many teams that had been chased away by Qin Hui to look at them with hostility. Sensing the subtle atmosphere, Yushan and Chun Yun were confused. Isn't this the Azure Dragon team? They came so late. Did they think they could drag it out? Haha, didn't you hear? They gave up 5 days ago. Maybe they had too much fun and forgot about the time. Let's see what happens to them later. Hearing this, Su Ming and the other two students clenched their fists. They didn't have to be last place. Teacher Qin, how was your hunt? At this moment, a group of young teachers walked over with 4 students, taking the initiative to greet them warmly. Qin Hui recognized them. They were from the Black Tortoise team. Like the Azure Dragon team, they were usually in the bottom 5. The Black Tortoise team had been last place many times, and this time they were second to last. They were here to find out about the Azure Dragon team situation, to see if they had made a comeback. Previously, the Azure Dragon team was only 10 points behind the Black Tortoise team. Qin Hui said calmly, "It was all right, we had some gains." The Black Tortoise team teacher who had asked the question had a faint smile. "Is that so? You have rested for 5 days and still have gains. That is not easy." His gaze shifted. "We are not as good as you. After 10 days of hard work, we only managed to catch 4 level 5 demonic beasts." "What?" Su Ming suddenly raised his head. The Black Tortoise team had gained very little. The Azure Dragon team had only lost 2 points to the Black Tortoise team. 2 points, any 2 level 5 demonic beasts would have been enough. Thinking of this, Su Ming glared at Su Yu with hatred. If they had not given up and persevered for a few more days, would it have been difficult to find another 2 level 5 demonic beasts? It was all because of their self-abandonment that the Azure Dragon team was in last place with a difference of 2 points. Yushan and Chunyun were also stunned. They sighed, their hearts filled with bitterness. They did not need to be in last place. Seeing their subtle expressions, the Black Tortoise team's Shi Chong heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, the Azure Dragon team was still in last place. They had not gained much in 10 days and thought they were doomed. Who would have thought a miracle would happen? They really had to thank Su Yu and Little Demon Su, who had given up on training. Haha, Teacher Qin, don't be discouraged. It is not too late to work hard next year. Saying this, the group of people left with a satisfied smile. The members of the Azure Dragon team did not have a good expression. At this moment, the elder in the Great Hall drew a space enchantment in front of him, isolating him from the outside world. According to the team, send representatives to hand over the demonic beasts one by one. Everyone entered in an orderly manner, their expressions filled with anticipation. After the registration, the ranking would be officially announced. The higher the ranking, the more rewards they would receive, especially the reward for the first place, which had always been the most desired by all the teams. No one knew who would receive the reward for this training. Finally, it was Su Yu's turn. "I'll go." Qin Hui took out 2 space storage devices and entered them. Chapter 2392. After entering, the old man looked up and saw that it was the Azure Dragon group. His old eyes could not hide the contempt. Falling behind was not scary. What was scary was giving up and not working hard. Take it out. Therefore, the old man's attitude was much more indifferent. He was not as polite as he was to other groups. Qin Hui's expression was the same as usual. She placed 2 space storage devices in front of him. The old man picked up the space storage device in his left hand and probed inside. He said indifferently, 1 level 6 demonic beast, 2 level 5 demonic beasts, 12 points, a total of 102 points. He looked a little better. Currently, the second from the bottom was the Black Tortoise group with 104 points. If there were more than 2 level 5 demonic beasts in the other space storage device, they would be able to get rid of the last place. With a glimmer of expectation, the old man picked up the second space storage device and probed inside. What he saw was a dense crowd of demonic beasts. The number was too many to count. He was so shocked that he did not even notice the pen in his hand fall on the table. Where did these come from? The old man was stunned and asked a question without rhyme or reason. Because there were too many demonic beasts inside. The most shocking thing was that there was not even 1 level 5 demonic beast. The lowest level was level 6. There were several level 7 demonic beasts. Qin Hui said calmly, "Deacon Lee must be joking. The demonic beasts were, of course, caught. Why would someone give them to us?" Only then did the old man realize that he had lost his composure. He quickly calmed down and said, "Ahem, I was just asking. Just asking." As he spoke, he carefully counted the number and level of demonic beasts. After half a cup of tea's time, he wrote down in disbelief, "Azure Dragon Group, 790 points, first place." Qin Hui's heart was beating fast. She left the barrier in satisfaction. Seeing that the Azure Dragon Group had not come out for a long time, the outside world could not help but be suspicious. What the hell? Even the first Qilin clan did not take such a long time. Could it be that Qin Hui is trying to bribe Deacon Li? Even so, it wouldn't take so long unless she sacrificed herself. Ahem, Deacon Li is famous for being upright and outspoken in the Eastern Region Divine Mansion. He wouldn't do such a thing, would he? As he spoke, Qin Hui came out with a flushed face under everyone's gaze. His strange expression immediately caused many people to speculate. Could it be that for such a long time, they were really doing it inside? Little did he know that it was because Qin Hui was too excited. After the last few groups entered, the old man retracted the barrier. Everyone's expressions were solemn as they waited for the old man's announcement. The results have been tabulated. I will only announce the top 3 and the bottom 3. As for the rest, you can see for yourselves after the list is released, the old man said indifferently. Everyone was filled with anticipation, especially the purple-faced, middle-aged man from the Qilin group. He stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes filled with confidence. According to the information he had, the Qilin group was firmly in first place without any suspense. Let's first announce the 3 from the bottom. The old man said the 3rd from the bottom, the Golden Crow group. Everyone's expressions were calm. The Golden Crow team had always been in the bottom 5, and it was normal for them to be ranked 3rd from the bottom. 2nd from the bottom, the teachers and students of the Black Tortoise team smiled knowingly. They were, of course, in 2nd place. This time, it could be said that he had narrowly escaped a calamity. They should let the Azure Dragon group have a taste of that painful punishment. The Black Phoenix group. However, what shocked the teachers and students of the Black Tortoise team was that they were not in 2nd place. What's going on? With a 2nd from the bottom, could it be that we accidentally beat the Golden Crow and the Black Phoenix group and became the 4th from the bottom? Is that why we're not announcing the rankings? The teachers and students were incredulous at the thought. 10 days ago, the Golden Crow and the Black Phoenix group had more points than them. Why were they ranked behind them now? First from the bottom, the old man paused on purpose and glanced at the Azure Dragon group. Many of the representatives looked at the Azure Dragon group with gloating eyes. Many teachers and students looked at them unkindly. This was the beginning of the Azure Dragon group's nightmare. Su Ming clenched his fists and lowered his head. Yu Shan, Chen Yun, and the other 2 teachers also lowered their heads in shame, not daring to meet the eyes of others. They sighed in their hearts. Of course, they were the last from the bottom. The Black Tortoise group. The old man's voice was extremely penetrating as he said slowly. In an instant, the great hall was dead silent. Regardless of whether it was the gloating groups, the Black Tortoise group, or the Azure Dragon group, they were all stunned. What was going on? Shouldn't it be the Azure Dragon group? They had all given up on themselves and given up on the training. How could they not be the last from the bottom? The teachers and students of the Black Tortoise group were petrified, as if they had fallen from the clouds into the 18th level of hell. They were actually the last from the bottom. In the Azure Dragon group, the ashamed Yu Shan, Chen Yun, and the rest suddenly raised their heads, their faces filled with disbelief. We are not the last from the bottom, not even the 3rd from the bottom. Yu Shan stammered. They were destined to be the last from the bottom, but the result was completely different from what they had expected. Chen Yun was also filled with disbelief. She suddenly looked at Su Yu and Su Xiao Mo. There is only one explanation for this situation. In the past 5 days, Su Yu and Su Xiao Mo had hunted down many demonic beasts. Not only had they successfully gotten rid of the last from the bottom, but they had also gotten rid of the bottom 3. They had wrongly accused Su Yu and Su Little Demon. The reason why they had come back 5 days earlier was because they were already very confident. Count yourselves lucky, the Elixir Master of the White Tiger group said angrily. The purple-faced, middle-aged man of the Qilin group glanced at the joyous faces of the Azure Dragon group teachers and students with disdain, shaking his head. The sorrow of the weak. So what if they got rid of the last place? They were still at the bottom. Even so, they were still extremely excited. If it was the Qilin group, they would definitely not be like this. Falling out of the top 5 would make them feel ashamed, let alone the last 5. He calmly retracted his gaze, looking at the old man, waiting for the top 3. No, the first place to be announced. I will now announce the top 3. The old man looked at the crowd. Third place, the White Tiger Group. The elixir master froze, his brows slightly furrowing. 10 days ago, the White Tiger Group was still in second place, 30 points behind the Oceanic Beast Group. To think that 10 days later, they would be overtaken by the Oceanic Beast Group. What a miscalculation. The purple-faced middle-aged man was also a little surprised. He threw a mocking look at the elixir master. Dan Haiqing, you have to work hard in the next year. Don't be overtaken again next year. While the crowd was discussing fiercely, the old man said again, second place, the Qilin Group. It was not the Oceanic Beast Group, but the Qilin Group. What? The crowd was in an uproar, not daring to believe this result. The Qilin Group, who was far ahead of everyone else, was actually in second place. Was there a mistake? Could it be that the Oceanic Beast Group suddenly broke out in a short 10 days and kicked the Qilin Group out of first place because they could not catch hundreds of demonic beasts? Isn't the Oceanic Beast Group too powerful? 10 days ago, they were behind the Qilin Group by 100 points. Maybe this is what it means to be well prepared. This time, the Oceanic Beast Group is indeed a dark horse. I really did not expect them to be in first place. The crowd was boiling with excitement, all surprised by the unexpected result. The purple-faced middle-aged man stood there stiffly, unable to accept such an unexpected result. Dan Haiqing could not help but laugh. Xiaoyun, I'll say the same to you. Continue to work hard. Don't be overtaken and lose the easily won first place. Hearing this, the purple-faced middle-aged man's face turned green and red. Finally, the first place of this trial is, the old man announced in a sonorous voice. The crowd was still chatting with each other and did not pay attention to him. Because they already knew the result, it was the Oceanic Beast Group. It's the Azure Dragon Group. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the whole world fell into silence. It was as if the river of time had suddenly been cut off, and time and space had been frozen forever. Everyone stopped talking and looked at each other, as if they were wondering if they had heard it wrong. It was not until the old man's voice echoed in the hall for the second time that they were instantly awakened. Wait, who? The Azure Dragon Group? It was not the Oceanic Beast Group, but the Azure Dragon Group that had always been at the bottom? Is there a mistake? Could it be that something went wrong when they were tabulating the results, and the total score was wrong? That should be it. Everyone looked at the old man, hoping that he could answer their questions. However, the old man's expression did not change, and he repeated, the first place, the Azure Dragon Group, is not wrong. Hearing the affirmative answer, the crowd was instantly in an uproar. How is that possible? 10 days ago, the Azure Dragon Group was in last place. 10 days later, they're in first place. There is no possibility. There is definitely a problem with the ranking. Yes, there is a problem. The teachers and students were all in agreement. They could not accept the fact that the Azure Dragon Group was in first place. Dan Haiqing was the most surprised, and he said, Deacon Lee, it's not that we are causing trouble, but this is a serious matter. Please announce their scores, and we will judge them. Deacon Lee smiled bitterly in his heart. He had already predicted this scene when the ranking was announced. All right, I will announce the scores of the top 3, the old man said. The third place, the White Tiger Group, for 180 points. The second place, the Qilin Group, 503 points. Xiaoyun and Dan Haiqing nodded, indicating that they had no objections to their scores. The first place, the Azure Dragon Group, 800 points. After announcing the results, Deacon Lee used his Path Lord's power to seal his ears, because as soon as the old man finished speaking, the crowd exclaimed again. What? 800 points? 800 points. 10 days ago, they only had 90 points. 10 days later, they have 800 points? I won't believe it, even if you beat me to death. Wait, that Qin Hui stayed in the spatial barrier for a long time, and when she came out, she had a strange look on her face. Could it be? I really didn't expect that. I was just joking, but now it seems like it's true. Deacon Lee is a law enforcer of the East Region God Palace, but he made such a dirty deal in public. I will definitely report this matter to the higher-ups of the East Region God Palace. I will not tolerate those who openly cheat and take bribes." The crowd was agitated, like a barrel of explosives that had been ignited.